I'm on that overload, overkill. I'm redline and I'm blue pills. High octane's my intake. I'm P Swayze, man, point break. Make no mistakes, I don't care. Not one shit will be given here. Make the room shake, earthquake, turbulence, outer space, yeah, let it go. Cruise control, full speed ahead with my eyes closed. I smoke the best, just hydro. Make my eyes red like Diablo. I'm taking off, next to go. Molotov, set the blow. These crimson eyes, I set the glow. Medieval shit, man, crossbows. We dangerous, beast mode. Got catapults for the bags of dope, man, set in stone, good to go. Found my zone in the Alamo, yeah, big time. Dinosaur, so big, colossal. You stuck in dirt, man, fossils. We taking out full throttle, let's go. Yelling at the sky, singing. Rolling through the heart, singing. Yelling at the sky, singing.
Okay, get it, got it, get it, good, like a big...
February 19th, 2020, ladies and gentlemen, from the Troy Lee Design Saloon in Corona, California, it's the Whiskey Throttle Show. Thanks for tuning in. Today we've got three-time world champion, national motocross champion, and moto pioneer from the African continent, Mr. Greg Albertyn, with us. We're excited about that. I think GL and I both have like secret kind of like, not man crush, but we really like this guy.
Well,
we're real excited about this.
I've already been given a lot of shit on Instagram. I was like, oh, tell GL to just relax, you know. So.
I saw it. They're really worried about you for this show. So try to keep your erection below the table if you can. With me, as always, Grant Langston and Donnie Bales, our co-host and producer. Gentlemen,
Super
welcome.
happy to
How's
be
it
here.
going? Yeah, I heard that GL wanted to just have the show all by himself and you and I not to be here.
Yeah,
I know.
You guys could have taken the day off. I would have taken care
I
of
had
everything.
some people ask if you were hosting. I'm like, oh.
I also had people say I needed to be in the crowd, so I couldn't ask questions.
Why does GL have tape over his mouth?
Yeah. So before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors. As always, this show doesn't happen without Yamaha. Simply the leaders in the power sports industry, whether you're looking for dirt bikes, side-by-sides, street bikes, you name it, generators, boats, pianos, they make it all, and their stuff is quality. Thank you so much to Yamaha. Go check their stuff out at a local dealer like maybe Langston Motorsports. PowerDot also, you can get a 20% discount by using the code Whiskey Throttle. And if you have a heartbeat, you can use one of these things. That's really the only requirement. So check out powerdot.com. Big thank you to Method Race Wheels as well. And they're giving you 20% off using our code Whiskey Throttle also. Troy Lee Design's bringing you our timeout today. SKDA. If you're looking for new graphics for your bikes, check these guys out. All designed and built in Australia, but shipped to you within 7 to 10 days. From the time you order it, it will be at your door. They keep you posted on where it's at in transit. And their stuff is super rad. So unique. Really quality material. As GL found out, he thought he was like brilliant at putting graphics on, but they use a certain
You dealt with
material
bubbles.
that like the bubbles come through it. So it's really tough to even make it bubble.
It's idiot proof, basically.
Basically. So check those guys out, SKDA. 4 Wheel Parts is bringing you our Get At Me Q&A segment today. They are your one-stop shop for all things off-road. Adidas, don't be a dick to your feet. Put them in some good shoes. Pro Circuit, big thank you to Pro Circuit. We need to get Mitch on this show. We keep talking about him having his own, and that's going to happen soon. Check their stuff out. They just had a really cool, they got like weekly deals where they blow stuff out for bikes that are a couple years old. So go over to ProCircuit.com, follow them on Instagram, and you can follow those good deals they put out. Dunlop Tires, the leader in tires for the motorcycle world, period. They win pretty much everything. I would say probably the more wins than any other company in this sport.
Well, especially nowadays. Just go look at the podium in both classes. It's always Dunlop.
Yeah, there's really no competition for them. Nihilo Concepts, they're giving you a free gift if using the code Whiskey Throttle by buying something down there, so check those guys out. Fire Department Coffee, 20% off using our code. They also give 10% of their proceeds to charity that helps injured firemen, so I love supporting those guys. They've got a brand new blend out called Extra Strength or Industrial Strength. Twice the caffeine.
The box even looks intimidating.
It's intimidating.
I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
It's aggressive. If you want to have heart palpitations, that's the stuff for you.
Make sure it's one word as well. The code doesn't work if it's separated, Whiskey Throttle.
Yeah, our code is Whiskey Throttle, one word, no capitals, nothing else. So we have had some issues there. And Seat Concepts, another a new partner for us. Love these guys. I spent today riding a new bike and thought, man, the seat is hard.
Yeah.
If some of these seat foams are a little tough, or some of them are thin, and you go through and hit the pan. These guys make an awesome product, whether it's just the cover or just the foam, or just the base, or the whole complete seat, they've got it for you. And really, really good stuff for like the off-road world when you're doing a lot of seat time.
Yeah.
And also they're getting into the snowmobile industry. So if that's something that you could also use, check those guys out. And last but not least, Specialized Bicycles, just simply the best products if you're pedaling two wheels around. Whether that's e-bikes, cross-country, downhill, Specialized just dominates the sport, period. And we're so psyched to have them on the show. And I'm going to get some of their new products on here, get one of their reps on soon to share with all the new stuff they've got coming on. For our first segment, I want to get our guest up, Mr. Greg Albertine. Dude, thank you for coming on.
Very happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, we've been talking about it ever since we started. Like, Albie will be a good show. Let's save it for later. So glad to finally have you on.
Thank you, man. You guys are two of my favorites, so really appreciate it, and looking to have forward to digging a little deeper into the history and having some fun with you guys.
Yeah, you probably don't get to talk about this stuff much anymore, huh?
I don't. I mean, I'm not in the industry anymore, and I've been retired for 20 years. I mean, I can walk through the pits incognito, and unless it's a really old fart, nobody even recognizes me, so it's pretty cool.
It's kind of nice, though, right? Like, sometimes you go, man, I did a lot in this sport. No, how are you not going to recognize me? But at the same time, it's nice to just...
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I want to sort of, go to some of the events and whatever and kind of have a little fun with getting to know people, then I can do that. But if I want to be incognito, I can do that too. So
that's nice about our sport. It's like the level of fame is
minimal.
It's minimal, right? Like LeBron James can't go walk through any place, right? Or so. Anyway,
you need a shirt that says, Greg Albertine, multi-time world champ and stuff, if you want to be recognized.
Because I'm that guy.
Right.
Exactly,
I know. Yeah.
I think you just wear that Biaffi jersey.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I do want to talk about that. There's a lot of comments about Biaffi.
It's going to be like, oh, that was the guy.
I think David Bailey made a comment. It needed to be called Be Off Me.
Oh, my gosh. Please be off me. Yes, exactly.
That's great. All right. So I want to bring you on now so you can be a part of our Method Race Wheels front end chatter. Method Race Wheels making the strongest, lightest, fastest wheels in off-road for your truck, van, sprinter, UTV. Go check them out, and 20% off using our code. So we are so hyped to have those guys support. So I guess this was apropos, since I have you two on here, is let's talk about South African motocross. Because, Albie, you paved the way for this guy. And then, man, there was a flurry of guys coming out of there. Tyler, who's the guy who raced in Europe? Just GPs.
Well, there was also Swanepoel. It seemed like when Albie was there was a few other guys. So it almost went like through generations. When there was yourself, there was Herring, Doug Moore. There was a few guys that were successful, maybe didn't win. And then there seemed like a lull again. And then a lot of times people were like, who was the next guy? And then I started getting sort of dubbed that. People were like, oh, this could be the next Albertine. And then since then, we've seen another little lull.
But where did like Rattray and Swanepoel and those guys? They were after you, right?
They were only like a year or two younger than me, so it was kind of in that same wave. Okay, I would win, move up, and then they would win. Isn't
that weird? It comes in waves like that. What's that about?
I don't know. I'm not sure why it came in waves. Obviously, it was always a big push for South African to become a world champion, whether it was Supercross or Europe. But Europe tended to be the way everybody went in those days. It was like, you got to go to Europe first before you go to the States. And as GL mentioned, there was a couple guys that went ahead of me. And, they had some good results. Robbie Herring was one of the fastest guys that's ever been on a motorcycle. He was incredibly fast, but just could never get that championship. So, when I went over, I had huge doubts in my mind. Like, nobody else had ever done it before. Can I do it? Is it possible even? That kind of thing. It was very, very questionable. Yeah.
Well, is there anybody that's coming up that you guys know of? Have you heard any names of like younger kids that are?
I've probably kept a little more in touch because we also have a business down there, and so we're involved a little bit in the racing. But there's times you go, this kid's got something, and I don't know. A lot of times it just seems to hit the end of the road for whatever reason. But there is a kid at the moment that's racing. I think he's based in Germany at the moment because he's beaten Evert's kid a few times at Camden McClellan. He seems to be the kid where I think he had that dominating youth in South Africa, which is a start. Because someone's going to dominate doesn't mean you're going to go all the way.
Yeah.
But I think what was good for him is with sponsors and family and all that, they've realized if we really want to chase that dream and try and be a world champion, we got to get over to Europe as soon as possible. So basically from a super mini age, well, about 85 cc's, done the European championships. He's had some good results. I know he did beat Liam Everts, Stefan's son, who's also been dubbed to be, another hot shot. So without physically watching the kids race in person, it's always hard to tell. But at least with the results and where he's based, it looks like maybe he is the next one. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk about the challenge of, it's easy winning in your backyard, but go to another continent and try and win. I mean, I don't think many people can really get the challenges of that. I mean, when I first moved to Europe, I had no friends. I couldn't speak the language. I mean, everybody was German, Dutch, or whatever. You got a visa for every single country you go to. You're homesick as hell. You get there, and it's just so muddy and so tough.
Cold.
That's what I remembered.
Cold and miserable.
It's a culture shock.
It's a culture shock. And then you got to learn your competition. I mean, you know how your guys are that you're racing with every week, and now there's a whole new slew of guys that you have no idea who's quick, who's not, and all of a sudden you're 25th when you were used to winning every week. I mean, to go and win on another continent is a whole nother game.
Do you know what? This is just my opinion. I don't know if there's any science behind it, but I think that if you look at guys who came from outside of the U.S. or Europe, so Australian guys, New Zealand guys, Townley, if you look at those riders, yourselves included, that trial by fire, having to go to those places and be thrown totally in the deep end as kids, it's sink or swim, right? And if you swam, you made it. It created very, very headstrong people.
Yeah.
Because you had to be. You know what I mean? I go to Europe for 2 weeks. I want to kill myself. I can't take it. Like I'm soft, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like the food. Everyone's blowing smoke in my face.
You're Americanized.
But
I feel like I've gotten to that point myself.
Yeah.
I go back to these places. I'm like, how the hell did I live here?
Yeah.
Like, this is just not for me.
Well, man, to have come from a place as small, relatively speaking, as South Africa, and make it to the stage that you guys did and have the success both of you did is like, it's really against all the odds. So impressive. And I would say the same thing about any Australian or New Zealand guy who made it, or Canadian, or
But I tell you, I mean, that fire, that will to win has to be so strong, because it's so much easier to pack your stuff and head home and just go find another career path. I mean, you really, really need to want it for sure.
Yeah, there's no question. I got to ask you this, because this comes up probably 2 or 3 times on the show. I remember you telling me about walkie-talkies. The South African food. And I thought, maybe he's just pulling my chain. Maybe that's not a real thing.
No, I'm serious. I mean, like South Africa or Africa, I mean, there's a lot of poverty, right? So, they would cut the chicken's heads off and cut the feet off, and they'd send the chicken to the grocery store, but the locals would buy the feet and the heads, and they used to call them walkie-talkies.
That is gross on a level I can't even really fully get into, but okay, so it's cleared up. Walkie-talkies a thing.
And walkie-talkies.
And that probably isn't even as gross as some of the stuff in China.
No,
or
those guys are on a whole nother level. I mean,
bats and monkey brains.
Seriously,
and
yeah. It's
all right. Well, I'm gonna see if I can get a couple of walkie-talkies shipped over in some dry ice.
I'll hook you up.
And so Donnie and Gio can try them.
Yeah,
I'm out.
We'll be.
I'll pass, bro. I'll pass. I eat the rest of the chicken, not the head and the feet.
You guys are so soft.
Softies. Yeah.
So,
Well, one thing we do have in South Africa a lot, like every time I go there, I have to have it as a starter, but it's the peri-peri chicken livers.
Oh, yeah. That's actually
They're
really
so good.
Yeah.
And over here, everyone goes, ew. Like, I'm telling you, their livers are way better than mine.
yeah,
No, that is good. I do like that for sure. Absolutely.
chicken livers, huh?
Peri-peri chicken livers.
I don't know what that means. His name was Perry twice?
No, peri-peri is a
It's a
type of seasoning.
Mozambican spice that the Portuguese used to use. Yeah. Still use it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it on those peri-peris.
You can throw it on your walkie-talkie. Well, peri-peri on a walkie-talkie.
walkie-talkie. Gross. Lastly, I want to just give a shout out to Ricky Brabeck. We had Ricky on the show literally days before he was headed off to Saudi Arabia for the Dakar. And just listening to his interview, it was obvious he meant business. I was really impressed by his dedication and his drive. In the same way you guys had to really want it.
He has to go to another continent and do the same thing.
First time, right? First American to ever do it. I mean, hats off to him. That just makes it that much harder.
I think what also made it even more special was how devastating that loss was last year when his bike broke on the penultimate stage, when he basically had it in the bag. He just had to cross the line. And I really felt for him, and I thought, and then when you saw him getting the lead this year, a part of me was like, please hold together. Like, just don't crash. And then you saw like Shorty, man, I felt bad for him. When they interviewed him on like after day 3 or 4, like he looked like he was already over it.
Yeah.
And he had multiple crashes, and he just had this look on his face like, I kind of want to quit, but I'm not going to. But man, and then giving his tire away and riding on the rim, like you see what those guys go through, and you're like,
No thanks.
that's brutal, man.
There's a video of Shorty trying to get up a sand dune with on just the rim. He gave his tire to Toby Price because he was kind of in contention.
See, I would have been like, man, you're KTM, I'm Husky. We're different companies.
Anyway, it was like Shorty's all, and he gets halfway up and just is not going anywhere, right? And he'd carve back down. And,
You know what hit me the most about that was when he'd say, "Oh, I only do 5 races a year," and everybody's like, "Oh, you're only doing 5 races." But he's doing 25 or 30 days on those races.
Yeah.
So it's like
doing Supercross and outdoors.
Yeah.
There's 30 races.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, and he does it in 5 races. That's the thing that's mind-boggling.
and you're staying out in the desert on your own, camping in
At the bivouac.
At the bivouac.
or at the bivouac.
He's bivouacking, yeah.
Anyway, he did a parade lap down at the San Diego Supercross, and I was really stoked they gave him that honor. Amazing to come out and be the first American.
Well, it was also cool because something like that, where he's in front of that Supercross crowd. I mean, let's be honest, an average Supercross fan that's going to watch some Supercross, they probably don't really follow Dakar. So this might also help that sport get into the mainstream just a little bit more.
I'll tell you something though. If he would have done one thing at San Diego, he would have had every fan in the world watching him. Just hit the finish line on that bike. If he would hit the finish line, everybody else would always be watching him from here on out.
I think he could have, no problem. He goes to the local tracks around here. We see him riding that
he
bike.
could've, yeah.
And he jumps every day that's out there.
He didn't have the track map in his
he didn't have the
map,
track
so he
map.
didn't know where the finish line was.
And he didn't know where the bivouac was.
If he would have made some waypoints at all the
Yeah.
corners, I think he'd have done it.
Can you imagine if he had hit the finish line, though? That would have been pretty rad.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get this party started. We start at the very beginning, dude. So tell us about hometown was Johannesburg, right?
Yeah, I grew up just outside of Johannesburg, and started. Friends of ours used to race, and my brother was 7 years older than me, and he was like, "Man, he really wanted a motorcycle," and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And my mom, all she kind of realized was, motorcycles was Hell's Angels. That's all she knew about. She's like, "My kids are never going to race motorcycles."
So Hell's Angels were even existed down there, huh?
Motorcycling was, I would say, pretty big in the 70s and 80s. I mean, relatively speaking, right? When you got a population of 20 million people or whatever it is, it was relatively big. But so she was like, "There's no way." And then eventually we wore her down, and they bought us bikes, and the rest is history.
So Dad didn't race, but he had buddies that raced, and so that was the introduction.
Yeah, it was more like family, friends. Their kids raced, some cousins, very, very first time I went with them to the track, I got on this guy's brand new, I think it was 1980
What track
CR, a Syringa Spa, and I rode it straight into a barbed wire fence, and I think it had the metal tank on it, and I scratched it up, and he was not happy, but I was like hooked. All right, I got to figure this out.
That fence was fun. I got to do this again.
Okay, I got the acceleration part down well. Braking, not so much.
So what was your first bike? You have a picture of it. We'll have to post that here in the show.
So I had got a YZ 80, 1981. That was my
and you
first bike.
mentioned, I thought this was interesting, like, because those bikes they were yellow over here at that time.
Yeah.
But you said Yamahas never came yellow down there.
They were always white in South Africa.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
They were all white in Europe always, too. So that's why when we got the white bikes in 85, it was brought over from Europe, the color.
No idea.
It is strange. But even when you look, manufacturers have done things where they've brought in like that version or that model in these countries and not there. And sometimes you're like, huh.
Well, I know there's different regulations for emissions or sound, and I get that. If you have to
But there
conform to
wasn't that
something.
much back then.
Yeah, you're probably right.
My first bike was the Honda QR50, but they didn't bring that into the States. But I know in Canada they brought them in.
That's so weird. You'd think it
But
would
here
be.
it was a Z50, I think.
You
the
think it
whole
would
time.
make more sense to produce one model, and then that's a worldwide model, right? Like,
Keep it simple.
yeah, cost-wise and everything, yeah.
No.
You also showed me a picture from you in grade school, I think, and Penny Harrison is in there.
Yeah, so
And we'll get back to. I mean, this is Ian Harrison, who was your mechanic through your whole career. Is his wife now.
Correct.
So, did Ian go to school with you also?
No, Ian and I became buddies when we were about 14. He was racing at the time, and he was looking for some jetting advice. We went down to Port Elizabeth and came over to my dad, and it was thick sand.
I was going to say, it was the only sand national we ever had.
Yeah. And anyway, so he came and asked my dad for some advice, and we kind of hit it off and became friends and been best buds ever since.
But you knew her. Were you friends with her?
Yeah, so I was friends with her. Her and her brother came to join the school I was at in Bryanston, and she was in, actually, I think we were a grade ahead of her, and then before we knew what happened, we were in the same grade, both of us. I always used to think that I would just do the minimum to pass, and next minute I had not quite done the minimum, so I repeated ninth grade, yeah.
Some paperwork foul up, probably.
Yeah. And there was no like parent-teacher conference, or maybe I was oblivious to it, but they weren't like warning us.
That
like,
was a
if
trip.
I did step it up.
Ninth grade twice as well.
Did you?
But I got
Tough.
my parents held me back. I scraped, like in South Africa, you had to get a percentage minimum grade overall,
Yeah.
and I think it was 40%. And I got 40%. And the school was like, Mr. and Mrs. Langston, it might not be a bad idea to hold your boy back a year. And I was pissed at first. And then I was like, wait,
mad.
if I'm dropping out of school, because that was my intention, I'm like, this is going to be like an easy year. I'm redoing everything. I was like, all right, I'll take it on the chin. Did you fail, though?
Well, yeah. I mean, they said you should redo the year.
Okay, so they see, that's what they do with me is they just said to my parents, we suggest.
Yeah.
Were you racing a lot and so just sort of neglecting it, or was it like you just
We were racing a lot, but I mean, if we left for a race or whatever, it was normally local, or we'd leave on Fridays and that. I can't tolerate boring freaking teachers and that. I mean, give me a good teacher, give me a good subject. I'm all about it. I'm a real student. I love learning about things, but not history. The great track for the 7th time in a row.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's like,
All the local South African history, they would beat that into your head like
because apartheid was in effect still, right? So we learned about the history of the white voortrekkers, which were the Dutch settlers, and we learned about that same thing year after year.
And he's a Dutchman.
Not really.
I'm from the English side.
There's some weird South African stuff about all that. I don't know if we want to get into it or not. I think we'll just leave it alone.
Yeah, but schooling there was definitely a little bit, I think it was tougher at that younger age. Like if you missed homework assignments, which I did every weekend, because when we went racing, we got homework over the weekend. And I was just like, not going to happen. So usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, my lunch breaks were in detention, catching up on homework, eating my sandwich at detention, and then was back off for the next race.
Yeah.
They're changing that, actually going away from homework. There's studies
Best
that
thing
say
ever.
there's
Why?
studies that say kids don't really.
I mean, if you can't learn enough in 8 hours a day or whatever they're at school, 6 hours, 5 hours, and you still got to go home and do homework, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, but the homework, it's more for the parents. Like, we've got a project. We've got to take them to a store. We've got to build this. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is homework for the parents, not the kids. There's not a lot of studying.
And for you, GL, it's the first time ever doing homework, so...
Yeah, I'm asking the kids, like, what the hell is this? What would you put in front of me?
Yeah.
Well, they've changed math so much.
Oh,
my kids are
Common
bringing
Core?
home this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know.
My little guy's in 4th grade, and he brings me math. I'm like, yeah, you better ask your mom or your sister.
Well, it's
I'm
that
like,
Common Core stuff. It's a load of hogwash.
Anyway,
We're not allowed to get into that stuff,
No,
GL.
we're staying out of politics. Okay.
political.
It's not,
So-
is it political?
Yes,
So
it
that's
is.
Educational.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
New category.
Borderline political. We'll let it slide today. So how old were you when you got that first bike?
So I was 8 years old, just before my 9th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looked like it was a little big for you.
It was a touch big. There's no question about it.
Were you a little guy?
I was a little guy till about 16, yeah. I
Little
was
towhead.
a little guy, yeah.
You had some blonde hair.
Yeah. Till I moved to Europe and then...
And then your brother, though, did he continue? Did he ride also?
So he did. So he was 7 years older than me. I started, right, let's just say 9, for example, and he was about 16. And he was very talented as well. I mean, super talented. But he was thrown in the deep end with like guys that had been racing,
Forever.
5-10 years already, and wanting to go the same speed as them, and could, but then he would grenade and end up hurting himself. So he had a lot of injuries, and eventually his shoulder wouldn't stay in place. Like he'd go through the whoops and it'd pop out, and he'd put it back in and do another lap. tough bugger. But yeah, so we started racing literally 2 weeks after I got my first bike, and we went to the races, and I got lapped like 3 times, and I said, all right, next race I'm going to win. A little delusional, but I was like, got the bug. And before we knew it happened, my sister got a bike and she was racing, and then my dad even got a bike, and it was a real blessing for our family because my dad was a big executive of a large cement company. So he'd take us to school in the morning, and then we wouldn't see him till the next morning because he'd come home like 9, 10 at night every night. And then all of a sudden he got really interested and was like working on the bikes, and he'd started coming home early. So it became a good family sport for us, and we'd all go to the races on the weekend. It was
That's awesome.
really great.
That's awesome
That's how
because
a lot of stories start.
well,
which is
yeah.
cool.
I mean, anything that brings a family together where they're doing something together.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because
right?
you traveled with your family in the early days.
You know, my folks split when I was 10, but my first, I guess, 4 or 5 years of racing, we went as a family to all the stuff. We camped at the tracks, and you know, those were great memories.
Great memories. So fun. Yeah.
But even still, even though my folks separated, my dad and I, like all of our stories, everything we talk about, you know, when we reminisce, it's all those traveling to the amateur nationals.
Those camping, man. The camping weekends where you're away and everybody's camping at the track. I mean, it's nothing like it is here. There was no motorhomes, or everybody was in tents. Maybe you had a caravan, which is like a little trailer.
Yeah, what was that picture we saw of your little van?
The
and
South
trailer?
Africans don't know what a combi is.
Yeah.
It's a what? It's a what?
It was a. Was yours a
Hi-Ace
Volkswagen?
No, well, we had a Toyota. Toyota Hi-Ace.
Toyota and Volkswagen were known for it, and they were used as a lot for taxis because you could, you know, pile 30 people in and take them back to the township or whatever. So the motocrossers realized, hey, you know what? We can load the whole family, the cooler, the tents, the everything, and just put a trailer on the back.
Yeah.
So it became the end thing was to have a combi.
Yeah.
Caravel, as it evolved to.
That was the Sprinter of the 80s
Pretty
and
much.
90s.
Exactly.
I still remember when my dad bought one, we had the enclosed trailer, and then it had our sponsors and my championships on the side. I looked, I was like, dude, we're legit. We've made it. Like, we're kind of big deals.
So not to digress too far, but I'll tell you a funny story. Yeah. Ian Harrison and his brother, right? So we were in Palabora. We were there for a local regional race. And they pull in kind of late at night, and they got the trailer, and the dad sleeping in the Caravel, the VW Bug, and the boys pitch this tent, but they like tie the guy rope to the trailer. Anyway, halfway through the night, the old man's not happy because the van's a little bit angled. So he fires it up and he starts driving around, and he makes one of these guys in the tent, and Ian's brother's like, earthquake!
I could just picture this tent getting towed around the parking lot.
Hey, lucky it didn't get run over.
Very lucky.
It's interesting to watch the evolution of track vehicles, right? Whatever it was, because it was pickup trucks.
Yeah.
You look at, you know, the in DeCoster's era, like the 70s in Europe, what they were hitting out of. I mean, it's hilarious. The little
but they were running vans here in the 60s and 70s.
like Raper vans, right?
Right. Regular old Ford van or whatever.
Bubble window on the side.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Mural on the side.
And then here, anyway, it went to box vans.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a box van, you were nobody. And then now it's sprinters, right? Like, if you don't have a sprinter.
I was going to say, I was just at the track yesterday with our buddy Vinny, and it's like...
It's lined up, right?
It's overtaken pickups. Like
Seriously,
in Southern California, when I moved here, it was like everyone had a pickup that went to the track. Everyone. A couple cars with trailers, but it was pickups. Now it's outnumbered. You're right. I mean, Sprinters and a few other companies are making them, but it's predominantly Sprinters.
Well, yeah. Or what? Yeah.
And GL, you have a Sprinter.
Yeah, you both have one.
He's like, I have that. Oh, I forgot because I came in my Raptor.
I forgot. I forgot.
Guys are a bunch of
Charlie
poses.
Designs has like 4 of them. I mean, they're all painted. It's a good vehicle.
Convenient.
It's just interesting to watch the evolution of it. So what was racing like in South Africa at that point? I'm trying to, having never been there, like... I'm trying to imagine the size of it. Like, how many riders would show up on a weekend?
So the early 80s was probably the heyday of motocross. I mean, they would have a national, and there'd be like 500 riders there.
Is that right?
Really big, yeah.
That was huge.
So when I got into it, I'm sure you guys remember Rex Staten, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was paid by Yamaha to race down there. So he was, quote unquote, like a factory rider for
Rocket Rex Staten.
Rocket Rex, yeah. And he was, I mean, super fast, great rider, and he was like part of the BP Yamaha team. And then quite soon after that, Honda, Suzuki, and Kawi realized they needed their, token factory riders. So they brought over Myaskov for Kawasaki, Larry Wasik came over for Honda, and then Jim Tarantino, King of Saddleback, came over for Suzuki. So at that time, I mean, it was really a heyday. And then I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but 1985, Mark Johnson, who I know you guys have mentioned several times, he came down with a whole Team Green contingent, including Matasevich and was it not Tyson Voland, but not Talon, but Tyson Voland, and a bunch of guys, and they came and did the Camel Supercross series, and I mean, it was really pumping. It was good.
Wow.
It was. Greg hit the nail on the head. That was its prime. I think, like in the 70s in the US, like it seemed like in Europe in the 60s, motocross kind of blew up. And then in the 70s here, it blew up. South Africa, it was like right after that. So the beginning of the 80s I see pictures even when my dad raced. He raced right at the end of 70 and early 80s till I was born. But there were some of the nationals where he's on the second row.
Yeah. 40 gates, and there's like 2 rows sometimes. Yeah.
So there was a point where, as we would say, based on per capita, the racing scene was relatively big. We had Wrangler involved, like a lot of the sponsors that were Camel. They were the title sponsor of Motocross and Supercross.
What was the economy like there in South Africa
at that time? It was good. Late 70s, early 80s was really good.
It was pretty good. And don't forget, I mean, this is still, quote, amateur racing, right? It's not professional or anything like that, although there were a few guys. I mean, probably.
I was going to say, I think our sport would be considered maybe semi-professional. Like a lot of the top guys got bikes, parts, and that, but no salary. But if you were like a guy brought overseas, or maybe like LB, where you were head and shoulders above everyone, there were a lot of guys at some point got either a good bonus program or travel money or
But there was a local pro, like each of those races had an expert or a pro class, right? So you make first money.
We don't technically call it a pro class. It was just like A, B, C.
But I mean, in South Africa, there was no rules where kids couldn't make money. I mean, from the age of like 11 onwards, I was making like $200 a week racing in prize money. I mean, and it obviously went up from there. But I mean, I was flush as a kid. It was good.
Look at you.
There was no rules about that. You could pay kids.
I was going to say. Go collect your white envelope.
Has it tapered a bit? I mean, kind of like here, kind of everywhere.
I've been back in recent years, and I saw it really do this.
The recession, I imagine,
We didn't have the recession didn't really affect South Africa nearly as much as it did the US, but around that time, maybe it did somewhat, but the racing scene kind of dwindled, and then we had an issue over there where there was a split. And, like when Indy and IRL did that, it's never good, but there's MSA Motorsport South Africa, and then another group formed called WAMSA, and it was short for World of Motocross South Africa, because it's actually ZA, not SA, is our...
South Africa?
Like, it's USA, we have ZA. But when that happened, I think it kind of did exactly that, diluted things. Sponsors didn't know which series to help, and there's only X amount of money, which is little. And the sport looked really bad. I was looking at like the 450 Pro class, or you want to call it that. Last year, there was, most races, there was 9 riders.
Yikes.
And I mean, not to get political at all, but I mean, South Africa's in a world of hurt right now. I mean, they're not doing great. Economy, I mean, the unemployment's close to 40%. That's official. I mean, unofficial with all the aliens or immigrants that have come in. I mean, it's got to be close to 60%. So overall, there's certain sectors of the economy that are doing very well, but overall, the average man is struggling.
It's rough down there, huh?
Yeah. It's changed quite a bit.
Well, the stories coming out of there about the farmers, if you're a white farmer, whew.
Yeah. Again, it just comes down to government corruption, right? The more corruption, the more discord and garbage is going on. And 25 years out of apartheid, I don't think the average South African is any better off than they were.
They're worse off.
They're worse off, yeah.
Dang it, man, that's crazy.
And it affects everything. So motorcycle sales are in the toilet. Even luxury cars are tanking a little bit.
Yeah. Is your family still there?
Everybody, yeah.
Everyone.
Whole family's still there. I'm the only one.
Yeah.
My mom always thought her baby was coming back, but
Is that sad? We see her a couple times a year.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's obviously got easier as the years have gone on, but I mean, my intention was always to go back. Hey, I'm here to race, and then I'm going to go back. I mean, family is very important to me, and you know, you get married, you get involved in business, and all of a sudden, it's like, well, we'll go spend 6 months there and 6 months here, and
That doesn't really
that's
work
not
Yeah,
either.
reality.
the roots start to grow down, and then it's
Yeah.
like at a point.
Yeah.
There's no pulling kids out of school. Everyone
Nah,
just can't.
exactly.
So, at what point was there a point where you were good enough where you're like, you know what, I need to make a run at the GPs, or were you? No one had ever really looked at going just straight to the U.S.,
Yeah.
right? It was kind of always GPs from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just backtracking a little bit. When I was 12, as I mentioned, Mark Johnson came down and he brought a bunch of guys, and I was part of Team Green at the time. Team Green had a really good presence down there, and I remember him saying, like, to my dad, and like this kid's got potential, and you know, I was like, wow, really? You know, I mean, I had no exposure to anything else, so that was like for me, okay, that's something that's interesting, and funny, I mean, you know, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm a born-again Christian and have a good relationship with Jesus. But my mom was praying for me at a race, and she just felt the Lord give her a very clear vision. Your son is going to be a world champion one day. This was when I was 12.
Is that right?
Yeah, clear as day. And she told me about it, and I was like, no way. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, when I started winning more and more, and about 14, 15, I started getting a little bit more serious about it, and we started talking about maybe looking at overseas, and yeah.
Because you were basically winning everything in South Africa at the point.
Yeah.
You had won,
Yeah.
as you moved up, you won year
Yeah.
after year after year.
Yeah.
Did you have any competition there? I mean, like, I don't say any, but who was your main competition there? Was there anybody else potentially that could go to Europe as well?
I mean, yeah, you're only as good as your competition, right? But, I mean, there was a lot of good guys. There was a lot of fast guys. I didn't see anybody that really had that little bit extra that could have gone, you know, on. Maybe they were. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But, I mean, I was winning, but, I mean, I wasn't winning by miles every week. But, yeah.
Didn't you battle a fair bit as a kid with like Herring?
Herring was about 4 or 5 years older than me,
that's
so
it,
yeah,
okay.
so no, I never
So not a
really
whole lot
raced
of
against him.
amateurs.
Yeah. Once at 16 or whatever, I jumped up into the seniors, which you know is an open age limit, and then that's when I started battling with some of the guys, and they hated me, absolutely hated
Oh,
me.
I'm sure.
I had the same thing.
Little blonde-haired
when a kid, well, because if you're in the seniors, it's usually guys that are at least 18 because you got the schoolboy class.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the same thing. After he kicked everyone's ass in schoolboy, Dad's like, time to move up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm quite happy. Yeah, I'm getting my prize money every weekend. I can fall in the first turn and still win. He's like, nope.
So did you do did you ever test the waters and go over and just like try one?
Well,
Or was that feasible?
so when I was 12, in 1985, I went to England for one. They had a youth international event, and I actually raced against Jamie Dobb and Paul Malin.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool event, and I can't remember how I did. I mean, I did decent. I didn't win it, but I did.
On a mini bikes? or
Yeah,
what?
yeah, on
Okay,
80s.
Yeah.
Yep. And then when we started getting serious, there was a very good friend of ours who owned a bike shop there called Bunny Chandler, and he had some ties to Europe and Germany and stuff like that. And we eventually, with his help, put together a little program where I went over to do the Maastricht Supercross, which is in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 4 races. It was Maastricht, Bercy, Paris, Geneva, and then there was one other one, maybe Antwerpen or something like that. So the plan was to go over for these 4 races and do them and see how I did. And maybe, this guy that a bike dealership out of Belgium was going to provide me bikes, and we'll see, maybe something else comes out of it. Anyway, so I go to the Supercross race in Holland, and I get second in the semifinal. And I go on the start line, literally third. So we got Bale, Stanton,
What?
me, and Johnson. That's the order of lining up at the gate. It was my first pro race ever, and I'm just like
16?
Yeah, 16. And I'm like, on
And
the
you
line.
had been you're looking up to those guys.
Oh my
right?
God! We saw their bikes in the pits, and we unrolled a whole roll of film just on their stock bikes with a pipe. I mean, we were like these
super
guys. We
fans.
were awestruck. I
Yeah.
mean,
They had their numbers on it.
they had their numbers. Anyway, on the line, I'm like, good luck, Ricky. And he's like, promise you. And he's like looking at me like, who is this clown? Anyway, I got taken out by Sean Kalos. I think I was like in 5th or something, and he cleaned me out in the cheap seats, and I can't remember where I finished. But it was enough for me to get the attention of Pat Bouland. I don't know if any of you guys remember him.
I've seen the name, yeah.
He was a Vert Moto review guy. And he was also tied with Oakley, and he came up to me after the race, and he gave me some Oakley goggles and stuff, and he said, I'm going to get you into Bercy next week. And I'm like, yes, because it was like invitation only. Anyway, so I went to Bercy and ended up, there's a picture of me in one of the magazines. I'm ahead of Jeff Ward because I think it was his last year, and had a pretty good run. I mean, I can't remember my results, but I did decently, and it was enough to generate some interest where the guy whose bike dealership I was riding with, he's like, let's put a team together, or let's do something for next year. So that's kind of how it came about. And
had you been riding any Supercross prior to that?
Yeah, I mean, we had Supercross in South Africa, but it was nothing like here. I mean, it was like, a peak jump with 3 little tiny little things afterwards. And
the tracks were not exactly well laid out. Like when I look back at somewhere like Kings Park and
Kings Park, yeah.
It was a like a stock car, dirt oval.
Yeah.
But we couldn't ride in the middle because it was a soccer field, so it couldn't destroy the grass. So we basically had to go around the outside, but then they would have like this random jump because you had the barrier on the outside of the track. So they would make a jump. So you'd jump out and then ride up on the grass hill, and then they'd have this like launch back into the stadium. But like it was pretty sketchy. Like looking back, the tracks were not well done.
Nah.
So that's a far cry from any of those arenas in Europe.
Yeah.
It's so tight and the dirt is so sticky, and the way they roll the whoops, that had to be like.
Yeah,
Well, the straightaways were pretty long. Like you'd hit that finish line triple sometimes, and like I think it was 5th gear. I remember watching the guys because I was just a kid. We used to go watch when they had the local Supercross, and they'd come from out of the stadium, launch in, come down the straightaway, some rollers, and then hit a triple.
No, I mean, it was such an eye-opener. Firstly, just in awe of all the people. And then, I mean, I'll never forget the guys had these loud horns, and they'd bring in the chainsaw motors, and there's smoke. And I mean, Jeff Leask from Australia came out of the ground. And I mean, this was when Ricky came down on a hand. It was like insane. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it in my life.
Those were like the sweet year, I think, for Bercy.
Yeah.
The theatrics that they would put into it. Now
it was a real show.
It was 4 nights. 4 nights. It was, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday afternoon. 4 nights in a row, and the stadium was packed every night.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that was sort of the trigger that got you interested.
Yeah, so then,
next year.
Well, I mean, obviously at that point I was like, I want to turn pro.
You committed.
Yeah, I mean, I was committed, and the bike dealership guy's name was Eddie Massot, and he ran a bike dealership, and he's like, okay, we can come back, let's do the GPs, let's do 125 GPs for next year. So I went back to South Africa, kind of rode, prepared, trained as much as I could.
You didn't really do much as far as, I don't know, bridging the gap. You didn't do a European round. Like, at least for me, I got to do like a European 125cc championship.
Yeah, no, nothing.
Which I felt like helped bridge the gap just a little bit, because even that was a big eye opener.
Yeah.
But
so no, I mean we showed up in Montevarchi in Italy for the first GP, and I mean I was struggling to qualify. I was right on the edge. I think they took like 21.
Well, back up real fast. You're 16, right? At this point, 17.
So I just turned 17. Yeah.
And you went over alone, like if I remember right, didn't you?
So my brother came with me, and then my mom and my dad came with for a little bit. Then he went back, but my brother was with me as like quote my mechanic. Yeah.
Okay. But he wasn't a great mechanic. He was more just.
He was a great beer drinker and a great darts player. But yeah, he would work on my bike sometimes.
Filters, he could work on.
I was going to say, once you get into that European lifestyle, the little bars there, and they always put the electronic darts.
He loved that. He freaking never bought a drink ever because he would beat everybody.
He win everyone,
darts. Yeah.
My dad was always at the bar, and I was a kid, so I had to find something. I got really good at darts myself.
So did you, prior to leaving, I mean, how tough was that for you to go? Were you excited, or were you kind of like?
I was very excited, obviously. I mean, it's like, wow, whole new world ahead of me. It was very, very tough to say goodbye to everybody at the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a picture there, and I'm just like, my heart is heavy, and I'm not knowing what to expect. And I mean, I was so young and naive, it's crazy. But
how did that conversation go? Because obviously you're in Europe discussing things. At some point, you either have to call your parents or you fly home and then say, this is what I'm doing. Or do I have your blessing?
Well, my dad came with me for the Supercross races, so he kind of was.
He was in tune with what was going on.
Yeah, so he was in support of everything we were doing and that, and so he had to then pay for us to buy a truck, which there's a picture, of very very ugly second-hand, maybe third-hand diesel 608. But it was basically just, let's put this together. The guy was going to supply us some bikes, and then the I'll get into that later. But the challenge was he would make these bikes, and for some reason Kawasaki wasn't supporting him at all, so he'd put pink plastics on it. I don't know why. Cosmetically, I got dealt all this short straws with Biaffi and pink plastic cowies and whatever. But anyway. And then what happens is the bike would go in the showroom on the Monday after the race, and he'd have a customer walk in, and boom, next minute that bike's gone. Okay, well, now we've got to build a new one.
He was selling your race bikes?
He was selling the race bikes, yeah. So then Colin would have to put all new stuff and stock suspension. And anyway, long story short, we go to Montevarchi for the first GP, and I'm struggling to qualify. But I just get in and end up getting, I think, like 15th or 18th or something. So, I mean, rude awakening, right? I'm the best in South Africa by miles, and now I'm like battling for 15th or 18th.
That's still a good opening ride.
Well, yeah.
Seriously.
But kicking the balls to be fighting for mid-pack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we went to, the next race was in Holland. And I actually was battling with Bobby Moore, and I got 4th and maybe 5th sand track, right? So obviously South Africa, I was quite used to riding sand, and everything just clicked, and I kind of had a really good result that day. And I think I got 4th overall, maybe 5th overall, something like that. And then third race, we go to Czechoslovakia. And I didn't qualify because there was a bunch of cheetah Frenchies and Belgians that were cutting the track at the back. Literally, I'm not kidding.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. That happened even when I was
You're on the cusp of, like, I mean, a tenth of a second is going to make you in the race or not. And these guys found a shortcut where it kind of pivoted and they would cut off, and there was no marshal there. So 3 guys jumped in. So I ended up being in reserve. So I didn't get to race the first race. Second race, I get dead last pick on the gate. Terrible start, and I'm coming around, and it's just dust. I mean, just a ball of dust, and I hit this pile of tires. I couldn't even see it. Boom. Over the bars, break my navicular, and I was out for like 3 months, maybe something like that. So that was my first GP season, was in the toilet.
But a 4th, 5th, that's probably, again, enough for them to go, look at this kid. Who's this?
Because there were probably still people going, who the hell is this guy? Like,
Well, I was a South African rider riding on a German license, racing for a Belgium team. I mean, they went, who the hell is this with pink plastic? Who is this clown?
You're a real bastard
and
racer.
tackler Finnish gear, which was like also as ugly as Biaffi, pretty much.
He looked like the bike from Winners Take All. Remember the 1980s movie? It's terrible.
Rick Mellon would have been proud.
Probably.
So you really were not the fashionista early on.
No. Well, even later on, I wasn't the fashionista.
Hey, we saw some photos. You weren't the greatest of fashionists.
We'll post
the tucked-in jean pants and the belt. But I guess that was acceptable back then.
Dude, that was Euro style, man.
So the following year, then, what happened? Same team?
So anyway, just to wrap up that season, we go final 2 races. I'm back. We go all the way to Spain and Portugal, which is like 2,500 Ks away. And the one race was canceled because they had no water. There was a major drought. And then I ended up racing the other one, and that was it. So at that point,
and how did that last one go?
Just 10th, maybe, something like that. Okay. Nothing great. So that was it. That was the championship done. The Kawasaki guy who owned the bike dealership said, we're done for next year. It's costing us a lot of money. And I went back to South Africa with nothing. And we ended up stopping at the Cologne Motor Show beforehand. Mm-hmm. I printed up these little cards, and I walked around, and I went to the DID chain thing and Renthal and freaking trying to drum up any support I could, and I got nothing. Mm-hmm. And I went back to South Africa, and I was like, that's it. My career's done.
You thought it was over at that point?
It started and it's finished. I mean, my dad had put a lot of money in at that point, and I don't think he was willing to front it all. So, yeah.
What year was that?
That was the end of 1990.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went back, and I was in South Africa. It was summer, beautiful, and just hanging out and trying to figure out next steps. And next minute, this fax comes in, old fax machines. And it was a full-fledged offer to ride for Jan de Groot on the JHK, whatever the team was called back in those days, with not only a mechanic to be paid for bikes, but a 10,000 guilder, Dutch guilder salary. And I was like, dude, this is like seriously a miracle from heaven. There's no question about it. Because he had Dave Strybos for the following, not yet, this was the next year, but he needed a local Dutch rider who could ride the Dutch championship to satisfy his Dutch sponsors. And he saw the race that I had in Holland, that one good result that I had, that's all. And he said, I need that guy just to race the Dutch championship.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, we can pass him off as Dutch.
Yeah, maybe. Albertine, right?
Yeah.
And the name is
I
Dutch.
told you, I'm a Dutchman, so you were a natural fit.
Yeah. So from having absolutely nothing and being so demoralized and completely just like devastated to actually having something, an opportunity, and that was incredible.
Does your mom's story or her comment to you kind of echo in your head?
Well, the whole time it does, right? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, this is not happening. This is not, and God often will give you a promise or a prophetic word, not for when things are going well, but through those dark times when you know you're going to come out the other side. That's when you really need to rely on those promises.
Sure.
Yeah.
So was that first season, you only got, 4 races in?
Yeah.
But did you learn, was there a lot of learning at that season, even though it was shortened?
Yeah, I mean, there was a ton of learning. It was probably the most lonely, depressing time of my life because I was so homesick. I didn't have the money just to fly home.
Yeah.
You're living in Europe, which you don't have any friends. I couldn't really speak the language.
I even go to the grocery stores is a challenge because you don't even know what you're ordering or what you're grabbing. You're like, what are these ingredients? You're like, I don't freaking know. I don't speak this language.
Were you in Holland? Where were you staying?
I was staying in Belgium.
Okay.
That first year, yeah.
Okay.
And it was just...
you and your brother, and that was it?
Yeah, that was it. My folks came over for a short visit, but it was primarily my brother and I. And it was such a dark, such a lonely time. I mean, you're seeing your dreams crumbling, and everyone else is racing, and you're at home with this big old freaking cost. Yeah, it was tough.
Especially hurt, right? Like you just what are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling. My first year over there was tough. I said on my show I wanted to throw in the towel, and my dad just said no. We've come this far. Like, I know it's tough, but we're going to fight it through. But it was. That first year was really tough, but I'm so glad we got over that crest.
Okay, so the following year, that was on Hondas?
So the 1991 season was on Hondas, yep.
Okay. And that was factory stuff?
No, I mean, Jan de Groot was an excellent tuner. Like, he was really good at motors.
He's like
maybe like a Mitch.
Yeah, kind of like a Mitch.
They actually worked together when Jan went to Kawasaki. Mitch and Jan used to work quite a lot together.
So at that point, I actually moved in with them in Holland. So I lived up in a little town called Apeldoorn and just had constant bitching from Jan's wife about South Africa and how terrible it is and how apartheid's wrong and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm just a kid here to race. I don't really know
exactly.
But anyway, I lived with them and... it was a rough year from that perspective, but we started seeing some traction and started seeing some results and that. Yeah.
Was that bike good?
Bike was good. I just needed to find my footing. And as I mentioned, we started seeing some decent results. I was not able to go to 2 of the GPs purely because I was South African. So Sweden would not allow me in and Brazil would not allow me in.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, why?
Because of apartheid.
Yeah.
Even though at that point, because wasn't apartheid officially over?
No, not yet.
It was 91.
Apartheid ended in 94. So basically, South Africa, because they had implemented apartheid, I'm sure everybody knows what it is, but basically it takes away the rights of black people to vote, to own property. They were treated as second-class citizens, and it was like huge segregation and discrimination back in the day. And so the rest of the world had viewed South Africa as like an enemy and like a real, just the pariah of the world. I mean, as it is, when I first moved to Europe, there was no EU. So if I was living in Belgium or staying in Belgium, you need a visa for Belgium. Then if you're traveling to Italy, you need a visa for Germany, then a visa for Italy. And then
to drive through.
And then to come back, often they wouldn't give you a multiple entry visa. So then you'd have to get another visa to enter and exit Germany. I'm telling you, we had 2 passports nonstop back and forth to all these embassies. I mean, we spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars just getting all these visas there. And even though we applied for the Brazilian visa 6 months before we were supposed to go. We flew to Guatemala, did the GP, and all 15 mechanics and 14 riders got on the plane and all expenses paid go to the Brazilian Grand Prix, and I was stranded in Guatemala.
Hey,
Couldn't go.
Brazil is not one to talk about atrocities going on. I'll tell you that right now.
Hey, that's political.
Oh,
Well,
Brazil's great.
but you know, you talk about South Africa. I think part of the problem with apartheid was one, it had a name. Two, it was one of the last countries that was getting away from it. I mean, if you look at what happened in Europe, you know, Jews and all that. I mean, even America, we had slavery, we had, Civil War. Every country goes through that, but it was like South Africa was one of the last to get out of that, if it makes sense. But it was also one of the newer countries, if it makes sense too, because it's not a very old country. But I also think that it was also a bit of the punching bag when everyone wanted to do the, we're so great. Oh, look at those guys. Look at the South Africans. And it was like, so this poor guy's like, I'm just here to race. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Hey, I just saw that movie the other day, Lethal Weapon 2, and it just bags on South Africa like pretty hardcore.
Really?
I
I never paid attention to that.
Yeah.
So how did that season go? Aside from those two events you couldn't go to, which is crazy to me.
So that season was the turning point in my career because I would have finished 8th, I think, but I ended up tied for points with Pit Byra. Him and I were buddies at the time, and we ended up tying on points. But the turning point for me was I led the Japanese GP for about 10 or 20 minutes, something like that. And even though Kudrowski was there, LaRocca was there, that was for me like, I can do it. I can do it. I ended up crashing. I mean, I drug pegs and I ended up going over the bars. Pretty big crash, but I led it for 20 minutes and I went, that's it. I know I can do it now.
How was the rest of that season? I mean, you were racing against, looking through the record books there, Pedro Tragder, Strybos, Vandenberg.
Yeah. I mean, solid riders. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think who ended up winning that year? I think it was Everts that won the championship that year, 92, 125.
Yeah, I had to look. Is that right?
Yeah, but I mean, it was good. It was a huge learning curve.
Well, not
and,
92,
he won
91. You mean?
He won 91.
Sorry, this is 91. Yeah, we're talking about 91. Yeah, so he won 91. Yep.
Okay.
But I was starting to have issues with my mechanic, and things just weren't kind of jiving, and that's when at the end of that season I went back and I said to my buddy Ian, who was working as a diesel mechanic apprentice at one of the cities, and I said in South Africa, okay. I said, hey, do you want to come over and be my mechanic? And he's like, sure, let's do it, because I mean he had always been working on his own bikes and he was always hard work and stuff. And
how funny is that? He went from, you met him, he's asking your dad jetting advice.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being your mechanic through your whole career. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And to see where he's at now.
Yeah, well,
running KTM.
We've mentioned Ian Harrison on here. If you're not familiar, this is the story of how he got introduced to the sport and brought in. And he was with you through all your world championships, came over here with you through your national championship, stayed with Suzuki and kind of was really Roger's right-hand man, building Suzuki into what it was through all of their championships. And then he came with Roger over to KTM, and again, they're doing what they're doing over there, which is incredible. And he's now with Roger kind of stepping back. Ian's the dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
so proud of him.
Yeah,
man.
it's incredible.
I mean, the guy is such a hard worker and just so diligent and such. I mean, he deserves every bit of credit.
He's never changed either. That's one thing.
Humble.
From the day I met him I met him, and I think it was the first time I sort of really met you was at your World Championship party in South Africa. I got to tag along with, remember Dick Shuttle from Castrol?
Yeah.
He was like, I'm good with the Albertines. You guys can come with. And I was like, we're going to a championship party. I was 11 or 12, but I was stoked.
I think I saw you sneaking booze at the back there, if I remember correctly.
Maybe. Wouldn't doubt it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so that year, you end up top 5, right?
No, 8th. I think I tied for 8th, so I ended up with the number 10 plate.
But that last race, you were like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
What was your best result, though?
91, geez. I don't know. It's been a long time.
You podiumed. I thought you podiumed somewhere.
I did. I podiumed in Switzerland for the first time, and then I think I podiumed 2 or 3 times that year, yeah. Maybe a third. I think third was my best overall result, yeah.
So then what happened with the team? Stayed on the same team?
So same team, and then they decided to up their game a little bit. So that's when they brought Dave Strybos on, who was a previous world champion. And 92 was amazing year, man, because obviously Ian came with me, and the very first flight he had ever been on in his entire life was to Europe.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they opened the door in Zurich in Switzerland, and there's snow coming in, and he's like freaking white-knuckled, and he's like, I want to go home. I mean, he was seriously, I think that first year he almost went home like 5 times.
So he had never really left South Africa.
No, he never left South Africa. And all of a sudden, he's get thrown in, and he's working with these challenging Dutch people. And it was very challenging. But
he'd be interesting on the show if we could get him on.
Oh,
His
yeah,
story's
you need
really
to get
good.
him. Yeah, you need to get him on for sure.
So that next season, then, 92, take us through that year.
So
And let me set this up, too, because Everts was sort of poised to be the guy, right?
Not to mention, Trachter was also supposed to be the guy. I think if on paper, I think a lot of people would have said, well, LB would be a good teammate to this guy.
Absolutely. I was in a supporting role. There's no question about it. Just to go back for a second. So when I first got to Europe in 1990, right, Everts had been given the silver spoon, father, 5-time world champion. I mean, he stepped onto a full factory Suzuki at 17, and this thing was just amazing. In some of the local Belgium races, him and I were banging bars, and I actually beat him a few times in that, and it was like not sitting well. So our rivalry started early in the 90s, but I mean, he obviously jumped up and won the 91. I was still trying to flounder around and figure myself out. But so going forward, I mean, you had John van der Berg, ex-world champion. You had Pedro Trachter. You had Dave Strybos. I mean, there was a slew of other guys that could win. And we go to the first race. And now the GPs are now 3 25-minute motos plus 2 laps.
Yeah, that's wild. Now, what was that? What was harder? Because were they 30 plus 2, or were you doing 40?
No, they were 40 plus 2. Yeah,
Okay.
325s plus 2 was harder, because by the time you roll into the last moto, I mean, you're done. And, you still got a long race to go. But, yeah, so we go down to Jerez in Spain. And Ian, I buy enough snacks and food and everything, because we're driving the 2,500 kilometers down to the south of Spain now from Belgium. And I think by the time we hit the Spanish border, every bit of food was gone. I mean, we had eaten the whole thing. But I'll never forget those memories, because we were so happy. I mean, it was like we had our own van. I had a CD player I just bought. I mean, we would have had the tunes cranking. I would be cooking in the back while he was driving, and we had such a good time. I mean, it was just like we were on the road.
I can relate to that. One of my favorite years of racing was when I was just a Suzuki support guy. Randy Lawrence was my mechanic, and we box vanned it.
Yeah.
We did the whole Supercross series, and I had enough money to do 5 nationals. And we just stayed at people's houses that we knew and found tracks to ride. But we just had, I don't know, something about it. It's kind of new to you still, and
But you got some comfort food around you, as in the people you like. And I think that helps too. When you got people that you trust and you like, it doesn't really matter where you're going. It's just a lot better.
Now, I mean, to have him as my mechanic and my best bud, it was like just amazing.
Maybe too, I don't know if this was the same for you, but there wasn't a ton of expectation at that point. It was like, if I did great, but if not, no one's really like expecting me to go win.
That changed quickly, because I won the first GP, right? And all of a sudden,
with what scores? How did that first?
I can't remember. I think I won 2 out of the 3 motos, something like that. But I mean, I just out of my entire career, I really had 2 years where I was in the zone. And 92 and 93 with them. I don't think the American public had ever really seen the best of my racing, or when I was really in the zone. And when I came over here, I was always on the back foot trying to
I think that was a little bit, could be said the same for like Tortelli.
Yeah, when Tortelli never got to shine.
When I was on 125 GPs
he was
a kid,
a savage over there.
I watched him at some races, and I was like, oh my God. But I've also seen him run down Carmichael and pass him. And that's only been done maybe by 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, I feel for Seb, because I mean, that guy.
But it was the same thing.
Racer.
If you come, then it's like maybe struggle a little Supercross or an injury here. Things are a little bit different. Like you said, you can just be a little bit on the back foot.
Well, yeah, and our seasons are just long or short enough, and our off season is just too short to where if you get hurt in one or the other, it's going to carry over.
It's like a massive hangover.
Yeah, you can't really get clear of it.
I mean, the only year I ever came out of the Supercross series healthy was the year I won the championship. That was the only time out of 6 years.
Okay, so going back to this season, you win the opener. What was the reaction from the Everts and the
Jerez? That was real quick, because Donations was up on the hill. If I remember correctly, didn't they build the track like on the actual road course? Like you guys jumped over the guardrails as well. I remember thinking, what a crappy track for a GP. And we would always see the magazines. I'm like, wow, look at this place. Wow, look at this place.
That was actually a fun track, though. I mean, yeah, you're right.
It looked like crap on TV, though.
Over the asphalt, but then you'd go up into the hills, and there was some big air jumps coming down, and it was pretty fun. Good crowd, too.
Yeah, they like their motorcycles.
Yeah.
So was your team, obviously, what probably wasn't expected, so what were they saying to you?
No, they were very, very pumped. Now, the team owner, Jan, was kind of like neutral, but his wife definitely wanted Dave to win. There was no question about it. I mean, she was definitely a fan of his. He was Dutch and everything else. So, but I tell you, I mean, my riding that year elevated so much because Strybos and I every time we rode, we were like neck and neck and just elevating each other's game. And if he got a quicker time than me, I mean, Europe, it's all about lap times, right? And I would go out and I'd beat his time and then he'd beat mine. And I mean, we were just constantly raising the bar. I mean, it was phenomenal. It was amazing. Yeah.
I think that's a really a silver bullet right there that not a ton of people take advantage of because they're too proud. I think that's a big part of why Alden's successful.
You're right.
Because he's got his guys down there doing motos together. And even if you gap them a little bit, they're watching each other.
Yeah.
And they don't want to get dropped.
Yeah.
So everybody's pushing 100% every day they
I was
ride.
going to say, during the week, instead of 85, 90%, it's more like 95 to 100 day in, day out. And then once you get used to that, coming on race day, when you have to pick it up, you're not out of control or out of breath or anything like that.
You also see more injuries out of that too, though, right? Because you're taking a lot bigger chances during the week.
Not necessarily. I mean,
I don't know.
That old saying,
I agree and disagree.
Yeah, perfect practice makes perfect, right? I mean, you can go out there and ride at 85% all day long, and all of a sudden now you're at 100 on race day. Now you're on the back foot trying to up your game, right? If you're used to practicing at that fine line of and your game is being elevated and that's the way you used to it, you're comfortable at that speed.
Yeah, because you can always make a mistake and crash, but at that speed, at that effort, you are 100% focused.
I was going to say, I feel like you crash less because you're so in the zone. When I was pushing myself the most, I never fell during the week or on race day. It always seemed to be the other times when you were thinking too much about, I'll have an easy day today, or I'm just doing motos, and then something would happen.
Yeah.
But it seemed like every time you were, because I think when you're on the edge, you're so focused because you know you're on the edge and you're worried about a mistake that it actually usually doesn't happen.
What did Ian say? I mean, was he like, I got to imagine that.
I'm your lucky charm. Where's my pay increase?
Well, for him, that had to be like, he's coming over to this new place, and then he just goes and wins a GP. Like, man, that had to be crazy for him too, right?
It was crazy. I mean, I think, Ian doesn't say a lot and he doesn't express a lot of emotion, but I think it was huge for him, and he was just like, this is incredible. And I think it obviously put pressure on him because now, hold on a second, this is not just, we're not just the European fun tour. I mean, we're here to, serious. Yeah.
Because now he's going, shit, my guy's leading the world championship.
Yeah.
Tighten that bolt three times.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
So how'd the rest of that season unfold?
It was a great season. I mean, I was listening to an interview about being in the zone, and I had a few races that year, but I'll never forget Czechoslovakia, 3 motos. I mean, I could literally feel the track. I could feel every little bump, kind of like Ricky was talking about that. I mean, I did not make a mistake the entire day. It was just like perfect. Every landing is spot on. I mean, it was just amazing. But ended up, we were going to, the final 2 races was Brazil and Japan. And the Brazilian Grand Prix got cancelled. So I'm in the lead at this point, and it got the GP got moved to Holland, and everybody's like, oh. So I think it was Strybos and Tract who were second and third at the time.
We're also really good sand riders.
Phenomenal sand riders, the best. I mean, literally the best in the world sand riders. And we ended up going there, and I think I got a flat in the 1, but I won 2 or something like that. I really came out of there with good points, but I needed 1 point to clinch the championship. I was 59 points ahead, and we had to go to Japan. So I had to wait 3 weeks now to clinch the championship. But it was really cool.
When you said 59-point lead, was that because they paid 20 points per moto?
Yeah, 20 points for a win, 17.
Okay.
15,
so they didn't come back to an overall of 50, 44 or something. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That changes a lot. Like you said, because a lot can happen. You get more chances for something to go bad in 3 motos, huh?
Yeah. So anyway, I had to wait 3 weeks, but was very happy to have my folks over there. And I mean, obviously won the championship in 92.
First moto?
First moto
at
clinched
Japan.
it. Yeah, just like...
Which is always good when Honda's there. And
it had to be great for your team, right?
It was insane. I mean, just, for me as a person to, again, be the first person ever out of Africa to win a world championship, it was like, yes, we can do it. Yes, we did it. I mean, the fuel that drove me was the thought of coming back through the airport doors at South Africa and celebrating with my friends and knowing freaking we've done it. I mean, it was insane. I mean, I would literally eat, sleep, dream, envision that all the time. I mean, that was what was driving me.
But it was crazy. I've told Ping before, but for that generation that was, myself 10 odd years behind you, even for us, it was like, not we think South African could win. It's like it just seemed like it's tangible. Like
you paved the road.
It really pumped up a bunch of kids without you probably realizing that we're like, there's a pathway. There's a pathway to completion. So it was really cool for us even when that happened. Like it really inspired the whole motocross community. Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Did you ever talk to your mom like after that about what she said to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, we lived it. And, I mean, I literally got on my knees and thanked God. And I said, promises are true, man. And, it was amazing.
That's crazy. Anything else stand out from that year? Anything wild or weird?
Because didn't you have to do the Dutch Championship as well?
I did need to do the Dutch Championship.
Did you win it?
I think I won it twice. First time they gave it to me, and the second time they changed the rules. You had to be a Dutch citizen to win it.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. They were getting upset.
But that, I mean, as crummy as that was to do an extra 5-race series, it was great practice because you're riding in thick sand, and it was really good.
It seems like the Dutch Championship is something that, like a lot of guys that come from other countries, not in Europe,
Cairoli,
end up riding it.
They end up basing themselves in Belgium, like near Lommel, which is like literally quick drive to Holland.
And GL, you did it too, right?
My first year I was based in Belgium as well, and then I rode for Champ KTM, which was a Dutch team. And I only moved, I think, when I went from Hasselt in Belgium to where I was in Holland, I think it was 40 or 50 miles.
Yeah, that's it.
So people are like, oh, you switched countries. How was that? I'm like, we drove from there to there.
Same language.
So what is it about that championship that kind of everybody does or kind of...
Well, I mean, in Italy, there's just mainly hard tracks. I mean, when I first got there, you knew that the Italians were going to suck in the sand, and they were going to be really good on hard pack. I mean, that was just a fact. And then obviously Cairoli and these guys realized if they want to win more championships, they can change
exactly. So to answer your question, Donnie, it was the guys. If you want to be world champion, you had to be a good sand rider. You had to be good at hard pack, mud, and sand. Like if you couldn't do all three, there was slim chance.
Yeah. Crazy. So. This always stood out to me that you didn't have a ton of years on. You're still pretty green. You win this championship, which was wild, and then you just move up to the 250 class.
Yeah.
Was there any? First of all, what team? How did that come about? But like, were you ever going? Maybe I should hang back and just defend it for a year, get a little bit more experience. I mean,
so as an individual myself, what makes me tick is new opportunities, looking for something new. I mean, I take my hat off to guys that can stay in the same class or win a championship over and over and over again. I'm not that guy. I've got to be looking for something new, something different.
New goals.
Yeah, I'm just wired that way. So I can't remember the exact reason or whose idea it was, but at that point, the 500 GPs were going away. And it was going to kind of be like a second, sort of more like a European class. So the 250s for 93 was the premier class. 125s was kind of taking a diminishing role, and the 250s was going to take the prominent role. I mean, my gosh, 93 was stacked. I mean, you had everybody from Trampus Parker, Alex Buzard, Donnie Schmidt, Stefan Evans, Kurt Nickel.
Was Bollet racing, or he was younger?
He was maybe a little bit behind.
He was a rookie, I think, that year in the 125s.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, but I mean, completely stacked.
Was Pitt still racing?
Yep.
Pitt was racing, yeah.
Did he move up as well, didn't he?
Anyway,
so talking about Pitt, so we used to, South Africa summer in December, and Pitt would often, so 92 and 93, he showed up, and 94, he would show up in South Africa. We were buddies at that time, and he'd come down and he'd have Suzuki ship him a bike or whoever it was, and he would come train and we would just do laps. I mean, our whole thing was laps, China, laps, and we just got to put in the time.
Laps, China.
Laps, China, laps. And we would make this corner track just down the road from me, and my buddy Daryl Atkins from New Zealand, if you remember Daryl, he would come down there. And I mean, it was a 3-minute lap time. And eventually, I mean, you were so on rails. I mean, you'd come into these corners with a rut that's 40, 50 feet long, and you didn't even have to look. You were just, I mean, just so in tune with your bike that corner speed was phenomenal. I mean, and that would tee us up for the GPs. But Pitt was always so pissed off because, we'd go partying the night before and have a good time, and I'd get up at like 10 and whatever, needed my beauty sleep. And he had already gone for like a 1-mile swim, a 4-mile ride, and then he was ready to go riding. He's like, come on, let's go riding. So when I beat him in the GPs, he was just so fired up because he put in so much time and effort. And
The pit bull.
The pit bull.
Pitt Buyer is who we're talking about if you're not familiar. He's KTM general manager of all racing.
Yeah, he pretty much. He spends more time at MotoGP now because obviously that's their kind of main focus.
But funny, he brought me this case of Red Bull. This was 1992. He brings this case of Red Bull. I'm like, what is this stuff? Oh, terrible, And this was obviously Red Bull in its fledgling days, just getting off the ground. He was buddies with the owner at the time.
Did it taste the same back then?
Probably.
What was he? He knew the owner. I mean, they're Austrian company, right?
Yeah.
Did he ask you to buy in? And you're like, I don't think so.
Can you imagine?
Could I? Yeah, wouldn't that been nice?
That's not going to go anywhere.
That and computers. What a waste of time.
You guys are stupid.
Yeah, next thing they're telling us we're going to use email to do everything.
What's this internet crap?
Yeah, I'm going to just mail my envelope.
So where did you wind up in '93? It wasn't the same team.
Same team, yeah. So the same team and
Same title sponsor.
Same title sponsors.
JHK.
Yep.
Did Honda come in with a little more support at that point?
So a little bit. I think they gave us a crank or two. And, no, I'm serious.
That's a little support.
A crank or two, and then Showa helped us out with some factory suspension.
Were the factories involved over there? I thought they were.
So Suzuki had a factory with Sylvain Gaburs. Yamaha had a factory team with Michele Rinaldi. Honda was kind of dabbling with the British guys a little bit, maybe the Castrol Honda team.
Yep.
That was when Rob Herring was racing for them. Who we missing? Cowie. Trying to think who Cowie had.
Was it Jan at that point?
No, he's with
this
Jan
is Jan's
Honda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jan switched to Cowie. I think actually Cowie were a little bit in no man's land for a while.
Jackie Vermont was still racing then. What team was he on?
No, he'd
got
been
hurt at that
retired a
point.
long time
He'd already
ago.
retired?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
I thought he raced.
Didn't he get hurt badly?
He got hurt really bad.
Yeah, he in Geneva Supercross.
They were
the
lowering him down.
rope broke or something
They
like
were
that.
lowering him down and he fell and it broke his leg real bad.
Yeah.
All right. So same team. You're still. It blows me away. You're still on is it basically a production bike?
Production bike, fully, yeah. I mean, full production with a little bit of suspension and Jan's bit of tuning.
Jan's a good tuner, right? So, okay. So, 93, you're in the 250 class. Take us through that year.
So we go to Italy, first
of all, preseason. You're going out, you're riding with other people.
Yeah.
Did you do
Where
any
do you think you're
preseason
going to
races?
fit in? I mean, you're a rookie in the big class now.
Yeah. I thought I was going to do pretty well, and I loved that bike, man. That 93 CR250 was phenomenal.
That was a good bike.
It was so good, man. And the power was good. And, we'd done quite a bit of preseason testing, but I didn't know where I was going to fit. I mean, you got 10 new guys in the series, that you've never raced against before, and I didn't know where I was going to be. So we go to the first GP in Italy. It's raining, it's muddy, and they tow you in.
I remember those days, I've been towed out.
Yeah. Anyway, the track was fine, but the first moto I ended up getting fourth, and I came in. I said, Ian, my brake, every time you pull it, it's hitting the little nut here on the throttle assembly. I had no front brake the entire race. If you fix that, I promise you I'll win. And he tweaked it and he fixed it, and I won the next two motos. And I knew. And I mean, in my entire career, the 93 season, I just kicked ass. It was amazing. When you're in that sweet spot, you're so confident. I mean, you just... I messed with my competition a lot mentally. I mean, everybody was very serious and stoic in Europe, and then I'd walk down to the pits. Hey, how's it going, man? And
my China.
How's it, boys? Let's go bang bars, And they were like, and especially Everts. I mean, I had him worked after a couple of weekends.
I have to tell you my quick story because when I went to Europe, my first year as a rookie, I rode for Harry Everts.
Oh wow!
So when we went to Jerez and south of Spain in the winter and testing and all that, I got to know Everts, and I was just a kid that was all fired up, and I realized pretty quickly, because every story I had was, my boy Albie, and eventually he looked at me, stopped me mid-sentence, and he goes, I don't know if you know, but he goes, I don't like that guy. And I was like, what do you mean?
Was
He's the
this Harry
greatest
or
guy.
Stefan?
Stefan.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's the coolest guy. Oh, dude, the guy can ride. And all of a sudden, Stefan just looking at me like, shut this kid up, please.
So you guys,
But anyway, I got to learn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He never said anything like that. He wasn't like, I hate him. Or he was just like basically, I could tell you got under his skin.
They hated me with a passion. I mean, it's like this clown from Africa comes and he's waxing them. I mean, it was
well, and your personality, like you just said, that's you. You're down there kind of smiling and laughing and a little bit loud.
And they are serious.
And they're just, very stoic.
Like, focusing on their gait.
But it was pretty funny, though. I was like, okay, enough with the LB comments. Let's talk about Euros.
It's not doing me any good.
Yeah, it's not winning me any fans.
Let's talk about techno music.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Gin.
And some German raves.
So, I mean, the rest of that year, you just kept killing it. You mentioned that, like, you kind of had him just.
Yeah,
mentally.
no, he was. I mean, Everts was and is a phenomenal rider. I mean, probably one of the most talented guys ever to set foot on a motorcycle. But he had his limits, and if you pushed him beyond he wouldn't go beyond his limits. So if you upped the game, he couldn't go beyond his limits. And then if you got in his head, he was completely toast. And I did. I got in his head real quick.
You had some rent-free real estate up there.
Yeah. No, they did not like me.
So, how many races did you win out of that season? Was that were you still doing 3 motos that year?
3 motos, 325s plus 2. I can't remember how many I won, but I mean, I dominated the season. I think I won maybe 8 GPs or 9 GPs out of the 15.
Yeah, it was about half, if I remember.
Yeah.
And your fitness was obviously good.
Yeah, no, I mean, super fit, and just I mean, it was
What did you do? What did you do for fitness? I mean,
laps, China laps. I always would do more than what I needed to. So whenever I'd go practicing, I'd be doing like 330s or 335s, and I mean hard.
but I mean, like, did you do much off the bike at that
So
point?
I did have a trainer in Europe. His name was Garrett, and I mean, he was good because I knew nothing about like physical training off the bike and that, and he was pretty good, and would like really get me, to do a lot of sprint training kind of thing, with bicycle and 30-second intervals.
High intensity interval stuff.
Yep.
So, what did that championship feel like to win that one? I mean,
amazing. I mean, again, the best year of my career, probably, and the sweetest, and freaking on top of the world, and confident, and really, really good.
we had Carmichael on not too long ago, and he talked about during all his runs, he was driven by fear. He was afraid of losing, and that's what motivated him to work hard.
Yeah.
And I don't, does that resonate with you at all? You sound like you're like most athletes, you think they just, through hard work and through success, you build this confidence where you just believe in yourself so much.
Yeah.
So to hear him say it wasn't really that, it was like, I was just scared of losing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really odd.
I do resonate a little bit with what he was saying. I mean, I never operated in fear. I was like always afraid because I really had a lot of confidence. I mean, I'd go down to the line and high five everybody and know that I was going to kick everybody's butt. But I didn't. I am afraid of failure. I hate failure.
Yeah. I think most of us are.
Yeah. I mean, to think of, the one championship that hurts me is the one I got second in 1998 to Doug Henry, because I wasn't like injured or completely missed it. I mean, I missed it by a little bit. And that sucks because it's like, frick, I was so close,
But you won the 250 championship. Which is right. That's what she said. Just Henry won the 400.
He won the 400. That's right.
Yeah, it was.
The AMA doesn't see it that way.
No,
but
of course
we'll
not.
give it to you. You were the first 250.
Well, that was also that period in our sport where we've seen it where they try to make rules and they think it's fair. I mean, I remember when I first moved over, we were teammates. KTM, Yamaha came with the 250F, and they, people involved were like, dude, a 250 4-stroke is such a heavy pig.
Yeah.
You're thankful you're on that 125. Then we're seeing the guys seat bouncing out of the corner doing stuff at Anaheim and all that. And we're like, I'm not too sure about this 2-stroke thing. And then, like, overnight, it was just, and I think people realize, oh, wow, four-stroke technology's come a long way from where it was in the 70s or whatever.
Well, when he's 4 bike lengths ahead of you going into
Down
the
the
first
start straight?
corner at Redbud, and you're like, dang.
We had the same thing in 01. I remember it was Kelly Smith, Larry Ward, anyone on the 250F, Fonseca, Ramsey, and then the rest of us.
I remember in the 80s, they used to have the 4-stroke nationals, and Ricky Johnson raced a TT 600 for like Pro Tech. And he said, if you could make a 4-stroke lighter, it would destroy a 2-stroke. And I thought to myself, that guy's crazy. What's he talking about? It's like, well, I guess he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. Heck yeah, for sure.
He knew. So you and Everts never really got along then?
I didn't have a problem with him. I just, I wanted to wax him.
You're just competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I think he's a good guy. I really feel for him, what he's been through. And my gosh, really sad to hear. But good guy. He was just born with every opportunity given to him, on a silver platter. And I had to really work my way up. And that's probably why they hated me so much, the group.
But like you said, it's racing because knowing the Everts family and knowing yourself, they're good people. You're a great dude. But when you're competitors, you don't see it that way. You're like, this guy's a bit of a tool, or this guy's this, or that guy's that.
Yeah. Have you talked to him ever much since you've left?
A couple of times, not too much. Yeah, a couple of times.
Well, you don't really go there, and he doesn't come here that much, so it's don't really cross paths, I guess.
Yeah. Do you ever, looking back, I'm jumping way ahead here, but the way you came to the U.S., your career went this way. Do you ever think, man, if I would have stayed in Europe, how many world titles could I have won?
I know for a fact I could have won probably 10 world titles. Again, what I mentioned to you earlier, I'm not that guy. I am not motivated to win the same thing over and over again. I'm looking for new challenges. That's just how I'm wired.
Just no motivation. You wouldn't be able to put your heart into it, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I mean, I'm sure I could put my heart into it if I really wanted to, but to me, it's like, what else is out there? What else can we try and achieve? What else can we try and accomplish?
That's admirable.
I want to ask, just because it was always someone that I was interested and intrigued by, and I remember you said one day he was a great guy, but tell us a little bit about Donnie Schmidt.
Oh, yeah. So Donnie...
LB raced with him, and you guys knew each other pretty well.
I was actually pretty good friends with him in 1990. Because he was doing the GPs then. He was on Sylvain Gabour's factory Suzuki team. And, I mean, I was starstruck. I'm trying to struggle to qualify, and this guy's got a full factory. I mean, it was surreal to look at the equipment and the team and everything else. And but, I mean, he was nice enough. I became pretty good friends with him and his wife. And, just good guy. And he started giving me tips. I mean, he'd hold his cards close to his chest, but he would start to give me tips and that, and just good guy, hardworking, and I mean super talented for sure. I miss him. I went to his funeral.
Did you?
Yeah,
that'd be a tough one.
Yeah,
especially the way it all happened.
Crazy.
I mean, it seemed like it was unexpected,
it was very
sudden.
Quick. Very quick.
Didn't he collapse in an elevator or something?
I don't remember the details, but it was very quick. I mean, within months he was gone.
Something actually just popped up on my YouTube feed of him riding on an old frozen lake bed, and they built a
We're going riding.
They built a Supercross track,
and he cut a hole in the ice, and he's fishing,
and
he pulls it out, and he goes, "We're going riding." I remember that.
It? I just saw him. He's like got a set of whoops made out of snow, and
ice.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Minnesota, man.
That was one of the old. What was it? Terra Firma?
I don't remember. Is that what it's from?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I watched. I used to love watching those. They were fun.
So, that's a huge accomplishment. Obviously, were people over in Europe? You kind of mentioned obviously Albertyn, his camp were not super impressed, but what was the general consensus of the paddock? Were they happy for you? Were you sort of like an outcast?
I was well liked with most of the riders. There was times in the championship where I would come up to a guy and they knew I was leading and whatever, and they'd literally move over and let me go by, even like some stiff competition. So I was definitely pretty well liked, and just personal, and hey, we're out here to have fun kind of thing.
Yeah.
But very serious, obviously, about winning. But yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have a lot of enemies, just you and Everett sort of butted heads because he was expected to win.
Exactly.
And you were really pissing him off that way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it came down. That's even the gist I got from their side.
Yeah.
So I think this is an interesting story. You originally wanted to come to the U.S. for 94.
Correct.
Explain all that, because it went sideways.
So probably halfway through the season, I think we came to Budds Creek maybe or something like that. And and I somehow ended up chatting to Dave Arnold who was the team manager of Honda at the time. And he said, yes, we'd absolutely love you to come over and race with us. And he got the balls in motion, and I think he faxed me a contract or mailed it to me, whatever it was. It was literally
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah, something like that.
Message in the bottle.
Yeah.
It was a contract to come and race for American Honda in the 94 season, Supercross and Motocross. And I'll never forget, it was $350,000. It was $100,000 more than I was making in Europe. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in. So we had the final GP of the year.
This is before you'd even won the title. They were interested.
Yeah,
way
I mean,
early on.
I won the title, I think, 2 races before the end. But the last race of the year was going to be at Suzuka Circuit in Japan. Mm-hmm. And Dave said, at that point, we'll sign the contract and make it all official. Japanese officials will be there, and everything else Japan Honda officials will be there. We'll make it official. So I said, great. So I told my team, I said, hey, just, love you guys. We've had a great couple of years together, 3 years together, but I'm going to Europe. I'm going to the States to race. So at that point, they said, okay. And they ended up signing Everts. And we go to Suzuka Circuit, and I sit down with Dave, and he's got this white look on his face, like he looks like he's just seen a ghost. And I'm like, Dave, what's up? He's like, I cannot sign that agreement with you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I just got news from the Japan Honda bosses, and they said, you're winning championships in Europe on a private team that they're not supporting at all for Honda. Why should they now pay you to come and race in the States when they've got McGrath over there? I'm not allowed to sign this contract. I was like, what? He said, yep, deal's done. And I walked out of the meeting, and I went, so I went back to Jan, and he's like, I can't do anything. I've already signed Everts, our budget's committed, everything else. So now I'm without a ride. World champion.
And that's also but Jan also switched to Cowie that year.
Well, this came a little later. This came a few months later, yeah. So I explored a little bit with a couple other teams, Yamaha. I think I spoke to Keith and maybe Cowie. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but there was some shenanigans going on with the team manager at Cowie at the time that wanted some if he signed me and that kind of thing. Probably just threw him under the bus already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who it was then.
I'm not going to tell you.
I know who it was.
Anyway, so nothing really kind of resonated. And all of a sudden, I was now without a ride. And Sylvain Gaburs, who obviously now just lost Everts for the factory Suzuki, and also Michele Rinaldi, I think Donnie was done for the following year or something like that. So neither of them had a rider. So they both discussed things together, and they said, we're both going to give him the same offer, all-inclusive, $250,000 a year, gear included, and unfortunately it was both Biaffi. So this is where the Biaffi story
starts.
Beefy, Biaffi, whatever.
Beefy.
So no matter who I went with, it was both going to be Biaffi for the 94 season.
So why did you choose Suzuki?
Well, I knew Sylvain just a little bit and his operation, and he was really good and nice.
Also geographically.
Geographically, he was in Belgium. I was already living in Belgium.
Rinaldi is
Italy. Yeah.
It's quite a trek.
Quite a track. Nobody in Italy spoke English at that time.
It must be like signing for one team, you stay in SoCal, or the other team, you go to North Carolina or Texas, Yeah.
So anyway, I made the decision to go with Sylvain, and
So we also think we might have some clarification from when we had Lammy on the show. And Lammy said Honda got all weird and tried to get rid of him to clear up space for some European guy. And we're pretty sure now we figured out it was for Elby. And then when Dave Arnold couldn't do it, they signed Lammy. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
when he had an agreement, then they tried to shun him and said, look, we got to create budget. And remember I said, I got a feeling, I think I know a little bit of the story, and it was because they thought they were going to have him.
Kind of goes back to a little bit what we were talking about earlier with Honda. They don't seem to take care of their champions. I mean, they didn't do it with McGrath. They didn't do it with Rossi. They didn't do it with me winning championships over there.
Rossi.
Didn't do it with Ricky.
Didn't do it with Ricky.
Several people. Even with Tomac. When he was winning on Honda, I just felt like they didn't really make an effort to keep him.
No, you're right.
It's not like Cowie had all this extra budget or whatever. It just seemed to me like Kawi said, we'll do whatever it takes to make you happy. And it just, I don't know. I might be missing something, but I think Honda's, when they became very strong in the 80s and that, I think they got a little too arrogant. And there's people that will tell you that Honda would say, well, it's not you that won, it's our bike won that championship, and I think that didn't resonate with some people very well either.
So what didn't resonate too well with me was at Suzuka Circuit, the pre-race party. They welcome us all there, and the Japanese Honda boss gets called up. He says, we have a special announcement, because one of the deals I'd made with them is like, if I win the championship, you got to let me ride a Honda NSX car around the Suzuka Circuit a few times. So they let me do that, and then the guy says, we want to present you with the car you drove today. I'm like, what? I'm going to get a Honda NSX. Guy pulls this little car out of his pocket and gives it to me. In front of all my peers and fellow racers and that. Yeah, gives me this little rinky-dink car.
Was that like a little cheap shot, you think? Or what? Do you think that was funny?
A joke in bad taste, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cheesehole.
You should have just went, thrown it.
I was very gracious.
You're a classy guy. You're a classy guy.
No, he's a South African. He drop kicked the shit out of that thing.
Yeah, he politely took it, left, and then took a crap on it later at the hotel. Okay, so how did that next year go then?
Oh my gosh, that was fighting for my life. Well, basically,
you know what it reminded me a little bit of was when MC left Honda, when things didn't work out and he had to try and, this wasn't planned, and it seemed to me like, I remember hearing like you guys were behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, Everett's riding style and mine are worlds apart. I mean, and that bike, he'd been on it for 3 years. That bike was set up for him. So even though off-season kind of went pretty well, I mean, we got all this factory stuff sent from Japan. And at the end of the day, once the season started, I was like, holy smokes, we are in big trouble here. Really big trouble. Yeah, I mean, I was getting waxed. I couldn't ride the thing. I mean, it was just so soft, the suspension, and it was really bad. So I actually had to fly my dad out. And I said, Dad, I need your help. I need you to come out.
And Ian, he was tagging along with you?
Ian was testing, at the time. But I mean, again, you got all this Japanese stuff that they want to put on, and this is the best. And it may have been the best for Stefan, it wasn't the best for me. So my dad came over and we just tested. I mean, we tested for weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally got it to the point where we could actually ride the thing. And that race in Ernie in France. That was a turning point for us, because I think they were back to 2 motors at that point.
Yeah.
But I ended up winning the overall.
240s, I think they went back to, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So you didn't look comfortable on that bike in the beginning.
I wasn't.
If you go look at 93 on the Honda, you looked very comfortable.
Yeah.
Like you rode the bike. I watched some footage from 94, and there were times, even just like over some of the jumps, you were coming up, and then it was dabbing the brake. Like, I don't know, it just seemed like you weren't.
You can watch a guy and tell they're uncomfortable.
When they're not 100% in tune with their bike.
I was so in tune with that 93 Honda, and the 94, it was like I was riding a tractor. Like so
Well,
different.
you notice, you tell it in a guy's style, because when he's comfortable, you ride up forward more, right? Because there's no hesitation about what it's going to do, right?
Tentative guys are more like this.
Yeah, you notice you're off the back a little more.
Yeah.
I do a lot of, with Vital, I'm doing a lot of bike tests, and if I get on one and it's just, I'm not feeling it that day, I can totally tell I'm like straight-armed, A
lot of clutch, dab the rear brake.
Well, that's why do you think in Supercross I was always like this? I mean, I was never comfortable in Supercross.
You needed longer arms, huh?
Jeez.
Get me further back if I can get there. So even at the best that you guys had that bike, it wasn't as good. You weren't as comfortable on it as you were your Honda.
No, not even close. I mean, we got it to the point where I could ride the thing and could win some races, but the turning point of that career. So once I turned things around, I started putting some successive wins in there and started really doing well. And I had a 35-point lead going into Lommel.
I remember this one.
Who else was winning GPs? Was
Everett's. Everett's was second at the time. I mean, he should have won that championship hands down. I don't know why he didn't, but anyway, probably because I was in his head.
Didn't he also break his collarbone?
He did break his collarbone, yeah. Yeah, kind of neutralized my 2 DNFs out. But anyway, so we go to Lommel, and come to find out a couple years later, the ECU unit on the bike, apparently if there's power lines nearby, it got affected. So the whole weekend, I was struggling, man. I'm like, Ian, this bike is not running right. I mean, it's running, but it's like running at probably 91% as opposed to 100%. And I'm just, Lommel is super deep sand, like 3 feet deep, huge bumps. and I'm just riding the wheels off this thing the whole time. So anyway, first moto come in, first corner crash, get caught up in a pileup. I come from dead last. I think I'm in 4th place. On the last lap, I run out of gas. And I'm not close to the finish line. I'm like half a lap
can't
from
push
the
a
finish
bike.
line.
Yeah, you can't push it 10 feet there.
So I'm like, you have got to be joking me. So anyway, next moto, I think they put a slightly bigger tank on or something like that.
Well, didn't they? I think what they would do a lot of times is they would try and heat them
it
up
up
and
and blow it
then
up.
put
Yeah,
air
but this was
pressure.
aluminum tank.
Oh,
Yeah, it was aluminum. So I think they had one that was slightly bigger. And I mean, they changed. I kept saying the bike's not running properly. Anyway, same deal. First corner crash. I get up, I charge, and I think I'm like 3rd, maybe something like that. Same deal. Run out of gas on the last lap, halfway through, half a lap to go.
and Everett
So I go-
went 1-1, right?
Yeah, so I go from a 35-point lead to a 5-point deficit in one day.
Come on.
No, seriously. This is a factory team. What factory team runs out of gas twice?
You don't run out of twice. It doesn't happen twice.
It doesn't
You're
happen.
supposed to
yeah.
learn the first time round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so now I'm all of a sudden scrambling from the back, and but again a couple really good results. Keep charging, and then Everett ended up breaking his collarbone. I think he only missed
One race.
one race. Yeah. And
Because I still remember them telling me the story that we were robbed in '94, and I'm like, he ran out of gas. Like, if you break your own collarbone, that's a little bit on you. When the bike doesn't
Yeah.
finish, it's not the rider's fault.
Yeah.
anyway, so we're going to the last GP in Geldorf in Germany, and I think I've got a 12-point lead. So I mean, this is
Was it pissing rain this year?
no, it was
No, you
dry
got
and
lucky.
dusty. But
It's one or the other.
But talking about thankfully making friends in the paddock, and I didn't get a great start, but the guys were like letting me by and cruising through. But I'll never forget the last moto of the day. I think like with 2 laps to go, Everts came in and like, I mean, I knew he was right there, and he purposely tried to ride me off the track, and I was like, whatever. But ended up winning it, and I mean, I shouldn't have won that year, but it was gnarly.
Huh. Was it hard for you to get motivated that year? You said
It was so hard. I mean, in my mind, I'm going to race in America, and all of a sudden now I got to regroup, and
goals, kind of reset goals, and you've already, like I said, you've already won this championship. It's probably not even on top of your priority list. So, okay, you win it again.
Yeah.
Stefan still really hates you now.
Yeah. Now the salt's purely been rubbed in the wounds nicely.
How did that transition into a ride in the States?
So basically, Roger DaCosta was working with Pepsi Honda, which was Yves DeMaria's team a little bit. Like
I remember that.
there was
Pepsi Honda team,
Italian team kind of thing, and he was coming over and stuff. And I can't remember how it came about, but he ended up coming to my apartment in Belgium when we sat down. And he said, what do you think about... I can't remember if I solicited him or he solicited me or whatever, but we spoke about setting up something in the States. And he said, let's maybe talk about Team Suzuki. And then I said, okay, but I definitely want Ian. Ian has to come with me. So he said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. So he went back and he said, well, they don't have much money. They can only pay you like 85 grand. And there was
What?
Yeah, there was a
3-time world champion, and now you're back to 85 G.
Yep.
Yeesh.
But there was a Dutch travel agent that said, oh, yeah, we'll put in 150 grand and it'll help you. And then Biaffi was going to put in 100 grand. So like get the salary up to something manageable. And anyway, so Roger goes away, kind of buttons it all up. And next minute I'm coming over, right? But all of a sudden the Dutch guy falls away. And so now we're like, I'm literally riding for 100 and whatever it was, 75 grand to come over here and race. But the fun and games started that next week. So we go to Motocross Des Nations. And,
this is the Bambi killing.
Everyone wants to hear about this.
Yeah. So Motocross Des Nations, I'm leading. I'm pulling away. I think La Rocca's second. And the track goes up this hill, turns, and
I've raced
comes down, Roggenburg. And I'm hauling but third gear pinned down this hill.
It's a big hill.
Yeah.
It's like Glen Helen, but you don't stop at the bottom. You keep going.
We have the
Yeah.
photo.
Seen it.
We'll drop it into the YouTube show.
Yeah. And next minute, I just see this brown blur, and before I know what's happened, I'm cartwheeling down the track. And I'm just like, what the heck was that? And I get up, I'm stunned, my radiator's ripped off, my pants are ripped
I was going
off.
to say, I remember it ripped his pants.
Did it have antlers or something, or what?
No antlers.
Or just caught the bars maybe or something, or what?
No, it ran right into my triple clamps. Like
But what ripped your pants off?
Oh, I don't know. Probably the crash.
Well, the dirt there is, because it's it's the Alps, it's got a lot of rock base.
Yeah,
it's like
shale.
Unadilla a little
Shale.
bit. So
Okay.
when you're falling, you're also grinding
Yeah.
It's almost like being on asphalt a little bit. So I'm pretty sure just between that, I remember seeing it in the newspaper, and I was like, whoa.
So I get up, and I see this animal lying there and, like, spasming, and I never thought it was a deer. I thought, oh, somebody let their dog out. It's like a Doberman Pinscher or something like that. And I'm looking for this person ready to kill him. And anyway, I'm
That's
like
not
still...
my dog.
I'm stunned, and I kind of ride back to the pits and whatever, and there's all like fur and saliva on my front board and fur in the triple clamps and whatever. But anyway, come to find out it was a deer instead of a dog.
You killed it dead too, huh?
Dead, yeah.
Yeah.
The Swiss, they barbecued it that night.
Shut up.
No, I'm serious.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good. Good
nothing
venison.
wrong.
Don't let it go to waste.
So anyway,
It's already dead.
so I won 3 world championships in a row. I hit a deer. The very next week, I'm back in South Africa practicing.
I was about to say, I think the deer was the start of this,
Yeah.
like, years of bad luck.
Yeah,
It was like your black cat encounter.
Yeah. So I hit a
You
deer.
killed Bambi's mom.
No, it was Bambi, and Disney's still punishing him for it.
Yes. So hit the deer. 2 weeks later, break my navicular. And so now we've got the Supercross season, right? Suzuki Supercross season starting in January. So this is September-ish. Have this thing on for 10 weeks, I think it was. So I get it off about 2 weeks before the start of the Supercross season. And
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2-3 weeks, something like that.
Jeez.
And Suzuki's got no track.
Oh yeah.
They don't have a race shop.
Well, they had that little sandy one up at Sunrise.
Oh, I think at this point that let
was
it go.
gone?
Yeah, that
All
was
right.
gone too. Maybe, but it wasn't much to speak of, whatever it was. There was no shop. There was no preseason testing. There was nothing. I mean, and now we're rolling into this thing. And in hindsight, what I really should have done is I should have said, forget Supercross the first year. Let me just get right outdoors, get used to this whole everything. Yeah. But I jump right in, and man, it's just injury after injury after injury. I mean, it was literally 18 months straight of successive injuries.
Yeah. Well, let's pick it up right there. I want to take a quick break. This is your Troy Lee Designs timeout. We'll be right back with more Greg Albertine.
At Nihilo Concepts, we have a passion for innovation and for motocross. Our mission is to develop parts that will improve the durability, functionality, and the appearance of your motorcycle. We're proud to say that everything from Nihilo is made in the USA in our state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Stuart, Florida. Whether you race every weekend or you just ride for fun, Nihilo offers high-quality, innovative parts that you just won't find anywhere else. Nihilo offers custom engraved engine covers, one-piece titanium foot pegs, brake tips, internal engine components, specialty tools, frame grip tape, carbon fiber components, and so much more. Check out our website, nihiloconcepts.com, and see for yourself why teams like Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, Troy Lee Designs, and some of the fastest riders in the world choose Nihilo Concepts. nihiloconcepts.com.
I see the sunrise, I wake up in the morning feeling so nice. I burn a couple bowls of the alright. I look out to the world and it's all mine, yeah, it's all mine. I see palm trees and joints, kids smoke palm trees like ointment. My weed breath is fresh cause I keep my appointments. Now I can finally see, like I smoke some DMT. What you think we should sound like, what you think we do at night. Cause we the best of this shit, we made a mess of this shit. We wreck the rest of all the Wester with the recklessness. If you's a bitch, you might get snatched up like some necklaces. This where the rest of us live. You say we feel like the West Coast. I say we sound like the past though. You say we feel like the West.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Whiskey Throttle Show. That was the Troy Designs timeout. Get over to troydesigns.com. Look at all the things they've got over there. Brand new D4 mountain bike downhill helmet. It is sweet. Super open front. Full coverage for your face, which is really required if you're doing any kind of enduro or downhill runs. But it's open, lets air in, so you don't feel like you're being suffocated. Awesome new helmet. Also casual, obviously motocross gear. There's a couple of new helmets out. All the 2020 gear. Go have a look. Amazing stuff. Albie, as we jump back into it, so 95, your first year over here, you made sure Roger was a part of the program, obviously. That was he was key in getting that done for you. You wanted Ian there. Ian's there. How was that bike coming off of what you came off from? I got to imagine there was some apprehension of even staying on a Suzuki, right? I mean, you didn't love that motorcycle.
No.
So you come over here. How was the bike in 95, and how much of an eye-opener was it to come here and race, especially with only 2 weeks of prep time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the bike was similar, handling and stuff like that. The motor was pretty good, but it handled similar to the 94 one. But yeah, I didn't have much time on the bike.
So like a shopping cart with a bad wheel?
Like every grocery store. I swear, don't you have that luck? You get in, you're like, son of a bitch. Why do I always get the one with the locked wheel and I'm running people off the road?
Yeah, well, listen, that bike and me on the Supercross track, it was a pretty bad combination right from the get-go. As I said, I probably should have taken 6 months and done the outdoors only.
Hindsight always helps.
Hindsight, yeah. Because, I mean, I just didn't have enough prep time, and I think Ian was probably shocked rigid when he came over here and saw the status of the team. I mean, I just don't think they'd put any money in or done anything for quite a while. So,
which is shocking because they had like Huffman's winning championships on the one. They had a lot of success considering how crappy their infrastructure was.
Yeah, I think Huffman's wins were a little bit later.
No, he won 94, and he won 95.
Okay, all right, interesting.
And before him,
Larry Ward was on the team, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Suzuki had a really successful 125 program even before Damon.
Yeah, but I mean,
Swink,
I
Swink
think
had won in 92, 3.
Yeah. He
anyway,
was 3, 4.
Guy Cooper,
Yeah.
But I also think that at that time, the 125cc class in the US was still a little bit on the primitive side. I mean, Mitch Payton was an independent who came to the forefront. There wasn't huge factory support. I mean, I think sometimes
there was factory riders. I mean, Honda had factory guys. Everybody did.
Okay, but hold on. He was a factory rider. I mean, there were a lot of guys in Europe that were factory riders. Their contracts went through Kawasaki, Europe via Japan, however it worked, but didn't mean they got full factory parts. I mean, even when I talk about, I think one of the reasons KTM and myself had success was the Japanese didn't have factory 125s. They were Rinaldi, they were Yandegrut, but they were like guys that like Mitch Payton that just lived the sport, that made stock bikes better, and they got the bikes and the parts, but they weren't true factory bikes.
Suzuki was here then, because Ezra Lusk was the other guy riding the east, and Huffman was riding the west, and their mechanic used to kick me down parts because I was a support guy.
But
so they had works pipes, ignitions, cylinders, all that stuff.
But when you say works, to me, works
straight from Japan, unavailable anywhere else. It was factory stuff.
And there was parts for sure. I mean, I think even Honda probably, like you said, gave some stuff. I think, but I think that true factory aspect. There's been true factory. I think when you look at the HRC guys, from RJ, O'Mara, that era. I think that was sort of true HRC. Maybe what we're going to say, Honda Racing Corporation. But even when I went to Europe, there was a lot of handmade stuff, but it wasn't coming from Japan. It was coming from Holland, Italy, Spain, Sweden, and then a lot of it was actually being made in the Eastern European countries. So it was kind of interesting because I always thought, there's going to be a million Japanese guys running around with all this stuff, and it was a little bit different to what even I had thought. I'd been given this, this image in my head.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit different to that.
You see that in Europe, but it wasn't like that here. There really was either you were buying Pro Circuit stuff that they sold, or you were a factory guy. And like even Swink, maybe you were there the year they had those titanium cone pipes.
Yeah, my 94 bike had a titanium, and 95, actually.
So they were getting works parts, But again, if you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have a place to test, you don't have a good shop, you don't have a dyno, you don't have all that stuff. It doesn't. You can throw all the parts at it you want. If it doesn't work right,
no, I mean, we had to, I don't want to say start from scratch, but pretty much start from scratch. I mean, they had their shop in Brea and that, but there was not a dedicated factory team. I mean, a race shop or anything like that. I mean, it really was starting from scratch.
So the bike itself
was decent.
Decent?
Yeah. I mean, the power was good. It definitely had a good motor. Handled a little bit questionable.
Okay.
But yeah, it did have a better motor. 96 was a terrible motor.
And what about getting on a Supercross track for the first time? Was that? And where did you ride it?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Well, I didn't. I mean, the Glen Helen track was not there. I mean, I think as you mentioned, I went up to Atlanta and it was raining a lot because it's winter, and we were kind of riding in the hills just off the 60. I mean, literally 3 weeks of prep before the first Supercross
That's
race.
that track by where there's those old dinosaurs, the metal dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember that.
It's crazy that's where we used to test. Yeah. All right, so I guess then the shot came in.
Yeah, no, it was a rude awakening. I mean, for sure. And it was like Anaheim was a huge eye opener, and I just wasn't prepared at all.
Yeah,
not even close.
Was it scary to you, or
yeah, very much so. I mean, just like anybody who doesn't ride Supercross every day, it's probably terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, and it's way better now because there are tracks that you can go to.
Yeah.
Not just the factory guys. There's several places you can just go and pay and ride. They have legit tracks for the most part. But back then, like you said, in 94, I experienced this. I'm riding at that track off the 60. Maybe 3 or 4 times Jeremy would let me ride his track, which still wasn't full size.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm riding just whatever janky little place I could get on. And so when you roll down into, track walk, and the triples are twice as tall as anything you've been on, you're like, oh,
twice as steep, for sure. No, it was definitely a rude awakening.
It's a different world.
I think also just getting into a stadium like that the first time. I remember when I went and did press day, 01, we were both there. And I was like, I don't know why, but this triple just seems like a lot bigger inside this place. Like, I don't know, it seemed gnarly. And then with everyone there, and you're like, I can't see the landing. Okay, I'll do it next lap. And then you're like, I'm the only guy not jumping the triple on press day.
You had guys like Mike Craig, Christian Craig's dad. I mean, he would jump everything the first lap. And I'm just looking at these triples going, holy smoke. He's just perfect timing. Yeah, super talented and obviously very comfortable.
So you didn't win an overall that year. 10th and 12th were your kind of championship.
Yeah, I mean, so the from hitting the deer, the injuries continued. I think Orlando Supercross had dislocated my shoulder. Kind of came back, separated my shoulder at Indy. Went to Troy, Ohio. Had a couple of decent results in the outdoors. Almost won Gainesville, but I think I got a flat. And then didn't even crash at Troy, Ohio, and broke my navicular. Didn't heal. Had to have surgery, so I was out for 6 months pretty much.
Jeez.
And
so
then
many of those bad navicular stories.
And then rolled into the 1996 season 3 weeks before, not having been on a bike in 6 months, and then we got El Nino. So now I'm trying to train for Supercross off the 60 by the dinosaurs with El Nino. I mean, it's just sloppy mud, and it's like a joke.
Well, El Nino was 98.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe
because actually, do you remember the track that we made an outdoor track right where the 15 and 215 meet? Do you remember that? And you showed up one day. It's just a hill track, but it was amazing. It was really fun. Yeah. And then people started hearing about it, and pretty soon, the day you were there, I think there was like 20 trucks.
Yeah.
And it looked like a national out there, and the cops showed up, and eventually...
You said the 15 and the 215?
Where the 215 and 15 meet in Temecula, right on the east side of the freeway.
I know where that is.
Yeah.
It's. I think there's still a little bit of open land right there.
There's still a track there.
It's mostly developed.
There's still
remember
a
when I
part of the
came
track
over
there,
at the end of 99, I think LaPaglia had the track fenced, and KTM had rented it. And that was the first time I got on the Supercross track. And when I say it was, well, we call it melting, when it just weathers over. The jumps were like, the triple takeoff was like this tall, and it was ramped. I mean, you could see the landing.
I got this Supercross.
I was even like, oh, these guys say it's so technical. I'm like, I'm going 4 through the whoops. I got this, and they were this big.
Yeah.
So
but I remember that area. It was cool.
So 96 Supercross was tough again.
Just completely unprepared. Come in and then definitely had a few crashes. I think I had Biaffi boots on, which offered zero protection, right? And so the 96 250 was horrendous.
Oh yeah, you've said this is the worst motorcycle you've ever ridden. Probably, right?
Worst bike I've ever raced. I mean, handling-wise was not that bad, but they had the conventional forks. So every time you landed from a jump, it would take about 2 seconds to settle down because all the flex, right? So there was no landing and turning. I mean, you land, you flex for 2 seconds, and then you turn.
A lot of outside lines.
The second
What
thing,
were you doing here? Flexing.
Straight flexing, bro.
the bike had so little power. I mean, it couldn't even pull the skin off a milk tart. Seriously, the factory bike, my factory bike, was pushing out 43 horsepower.
Jeez.
Now you got Emig on his Cowie. That thing was pushing out 51, and I think McGrath's was pushing out like 50 or something. So these guys would come into the corner, go in the inside, and hit the triple. I was railing the outside, and I had to do every triple in third gear because we had the bike geared that it could never clear it in seconds.
Is that right?
Run out of RPM.
Yeah.
Like just run
Well,
out.
if you didn't gear it down, it was not going to have enough power to come out of the corners. So then I had to hit him in third gear. It was so bad. So everybody's like, "Well, why'd you crash so much?" Well, because I wanted to give you something to talk about. That's why.
I wanted to entertain you.
Yeah, I want to entertain you. I mean, I was trying my butt off, and I'm one of those guys that's going to give it 100%, and unfortunately, a lot of the times it grenaded.
Well, I know that Pro Circuit was helping a lot during that time, right? I mean, if I remember right, there was a bike on the Pro Circuit dyno 12, 15 hours a day.
Yeah, well, that was the turning point where Roger and Ian went, geez, we need to do something, because the stock bike was so bad. I mean, it was so bad. So, yeah, that's when they started working with Mitch, and they were dynoing all the time. And that's why Ian developed so much skills and technical abilities from regards to, tuning and stuff like that because of that.
So, did that bike handle well outdoors?
Yeah.
I got to imagine that flex is actually nice on a...
Yeah, no, it did. And obviously when we went to upside down forks, it definitely helped as well. I mean, that was a big improvement for sure.
So Suzuki, bad for your career, great for Ian.
No, I don't want to say that, because Suzuki's been awesome to me, and I just happened to end up on Suzuki. How my career would be different if I had stayed on Honda or whatever, who knows? Who knows?
Well, and every manufacturer goes through their ups and downs.
Yeah.
Look at how terrible that Honda was.
Yeah,
in
with
98.
the perimeter frame and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But what's funny is you said it handled well, and I always laugh because every story whether it's a bike or a car, when it has no power, it actually handles pretty good. Everyone's like, it handles pretty good. I'm like, I get it now. It does.
That's true.
You can hold it wide open everywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so 96, Supercross, really not much to talk about, huh?
Just injury after injury. I mean, tremendous injuries. Really struggled. Again, came in unprepared completely because I'd been injured for 6 months.
Yeah.
And,
But you did get your first overall outdoor win that year, right? Unadilla?
Correct, yeah. I think
How did that feel? That had to be like, okay.
Well, I mean,
It's been a while.
As any professional athlete, if you start getting that downward spiral going down, injury, confidence, everything starts to go down. Fitness, your competition's going forward, you're going backwards. To turn that around is incredibly hard. And, to get that victory, even though I think I went 2-2 on the day, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so overdue and so long. Because, I mean, you're coming from this high, 3 world championships before I'm 21. I mean,
couldn't do anything wrong almost.
Couldn't do anything wrong. I mean, I was like the king, and now I'm like, so happy with 2 seconds overall. I mean, it's like, woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Yeah, it was very tough.
So we kind of talked about that bike being the worst ever. Did they make some improvements for the following year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Roger and Ian really took it upon themselves to just continue to, I mean, the factory was not giving them, I don't think, the support they needed. And so they really, really worked hard with Mitch and got it to the point where the bike was starting to get better. I mean, almost monthly, it was getting better and better. So I think in 97, I had Laraco and Larry Ward as my teammates.
Well, Laraco, if I remember right, he said that was the worst bike he ever rode. Was the 97.
Wow. It was 10 steps ahead of the 96
Is that
bike.
right?
I can promise you that. Yeah, it was so bad.
He wasn't there in 96, right? Just 97?
I'm trying to remember. I think maybe.
I wonder if he's talking about the 96.
I know he was Cowie 95, and I think he was there 96 too.
Hey, Cowie.
Because I was Team Green in South Africa, and I remember.
Okay, well, anyway. Okay, so it was better.
Yeah, I mean, it just steadily, progressively got better each year, and obviously 99 was good enough to win the championship, and then it even got better after that, when Ricky and them got on it.
In, if I remember correctly, 97 was a good Supercross season, though. Like,
Yeah.
you were, even though you didn't win, you were like several podiums and a lot of fourths, and like you were at least healthy and in it.
Top 5. Yeah, I did win the Coliseum that year.
Was that 97?
That was 98.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No.
Oh, no, it was
no,
97.
he's right.
Yeah, it was
Tortelli
97.
won 98.
97.
Okay.
Yeah, 97. Yeah, so with McGrath joining the team, there's no question. It was kind of like the year I had Strybos, right? It upped my game big time. You got this guy who is really good at this craft. I mean, he's such a good racer, such a good athlete, so good at Supercross. So it could nothing but elevate my game. So I learned so much from him. So yeah, I mean, coming into the Coliseum, first race of the year, I'm like, all right, man, I'm here, I'm ready. We'd been working really hard. Bike was okay. And I mean, it was like really a surprise to win. It was great, but I had a lot of confidence. I think I got 5 podiums that year.
Yeah, it was. I remember it was a good year for you as far as Supercross.
Yeah.
Like consistency. Like just.
The Pat from 90s Motocross, the Instagram page, posted that win this week. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, yes, I did see that. Yeah, that was cool.
Pretty cool.
90s
Yeah, I mean, and I think LaRocco was even on the podium too. Maybe he got 3rd.
I don't remember.
I think
that's
he
the
came
night
across third,
Deegan Ghost rode his bike. That was a good one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was an interesting night.
Yeah, Henry was 2nd, and was LaRocco 3rd?
I think it was LaRocco, and Lusk was right on him.
Maybe.
No, that was for 4th and 5th. 3rd was Ward. I think Ward got 3rd. We'll have to go check.
Hey, Donnie. He's on it.
And he's like, I'm already on it, guys. Don't have to tell me.
So I wrote this in here because this to me is still, I look back and laugh at this at Orlando that year.
Yeah.
I was really good friends with Chad Pedersen. We call him Swap. He was the original Swap. But he crashed in his heat and destroyed his arm, did a number on it. So he goes to the hospital. I go out in my heat, and Barry Carson and I go through this first turn together, and there's a big double right at the first turn, and he jumps, and he doesn't do the double. I'm doing it, and he crosses over. I land right on top of his head.
Oh, jeez.
And, gosh, what did I do? My shoulder or something. Hurt my shoulder. So I go to the hospital. Brian Swink breaks his arm, something, in his heat. He comes to the hospital. And it's like just a gallery of clowns at the hospital. Every 15 minutes, somebody else is coming in, and we're like, hey!
I was the final joker that rolled in.
I swear, me, you, Swap, Swink, and there was a couple other guys. There was at least 7 of us in there.
Yeah. Now, that frustrated me so bad because there was one of those corner before triple, McGrath, Emig going inside, and I'm railing the outside. And what happens? I come up short, right? I mean, I'm twisting the throttle as hard as I can, hit in 3rd gear, and I come up short. And then what happens? It sends me into the next rhythm, and I'm winding up the windows. And
that one looks so...
That was a dirty one.
Yeah.
That one hurts my tailbone just looking at it.
So, how about the rest of that year? How did that go?
So what year are we talking about? 97?
Well, 97.
Right?
You were 5th and 8th overall in the championships. That's pretty dang good. I mean... It's
for a champion.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
though.
it's a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Wait, which were you 5th in, and which were you 8th?
Supercross, I finished 5th.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. It was a good Supercross season.
It was a good Supercross.
But 8th out of no.
Won Hangtown, right? That year.
In 97?
In 97, won Hangtown.
I'll believe you.
Yeah.
He's like, I just learned
it's
something
so
new.
long ago. It's like, gee.
Yeah,
crazy.
you, then Emig 2nd, and Larry Ward 3rd.
Okay, there you go.
So, pretty good year.
Yeah, well,
okay.
decent.
Step in the right direction.
Yeah. No, but how do you end up 8th? Like, truthfully, that's
I know
not
for
that
a
good.
fact at Redbud, they had the little air vent thing on my fuel the wrong way, and the bike would run, and then
lock.
the vapor lock would suck the fuel tank in, and then there was no gas. That was one of the issues. I DNF'd that moto. Yeah, I had that was not a great year in a lot of ways. Mechanically,
more injuries outdoors or no?
Probably. Probably.
It was a good job.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure, but if we're just betting on odds,
I mean, seriously,
yes,
it was like 3
We'll take
years.
the over under.
3 years of non-stop injuries. Yep.
Okay, 98. How did that Supercross season go?
Man, now you're really taxing my memory.
Well, all right.
I think it was okay. It wasn't as good as 97. Yeah, I mean, just didn't quite get the results. I think Daytona, maybe I got a 2nd or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah. In any of these years,
You got a 4th at Daytona.
Okay.
Were you?
He got a 2nd 1 year.
Was there What's your mindset? You're getting hurt. Is there frustration, or you?
Oh my
feel
gosh,
like,
I'm so frustrated at this point. I mean, so discouraged. So I mean, just that negative spiral has really taken its toll.
Sure.
And now you're really questioning: am I ever going to be able to win again? Can I win? I mean, I won in Europe, I won in South Africa, but I don't know if I can ever win here. Nobody had ever done it before. No South African had done it.
Yeah. Did you ever shop around for other manufacturers?
No, but nobody would have been willing to hire me at that point. I mean, I was a has-been.
Probably not or at least not. Oh, at that time you only had 4 factory teams, so there's 3 other options.
Yeah,
and they were pretty full. And like you said, when you're struggling, it's not like people are like, oh man.
Yeah.
Let me roll out the red carpet.
Yeah.
Let me get rid of someone that's done
there was
good.
no. I mean, I didn't have any like flashes of brilliance, amazing speed that anybody would go, oh well, if he got on this bike, he would be all that. I mean, it was none of that. I was just plodding along, struggling.
All right. So,
but the best news is I'd given Biaffi the middle finger. So as I mentioned, they hold you hostage every year, and like they would pay you in 3 payments, and they'd give you the first 2 payments. But until you signed the contract for the following year, they weren't going to pay you that extra 35 grand. And eventually I said, I don't care anymore. And I said goodbye. And ended up signing with MSR.
Be off me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to suck in your results and not feel good, but to look crappy too. I mean, that's like really bad.
There is something to looking good. You know what I mean? Like, there really is something to it. Because I had some years where I didn't like my gear, and you just kind of like, ugh.
You can't feel confident going to the line in this purple and pink spotted garbage. I mean, seriously.
You're getting some better gear, and they're like, man, he looks fast.
Yeah. You look at my
I still remember in 07 when M2R went out of business, and I switched to MSR and Bell helmets. And I remember Tim Ferry said after the season, he was obviously upset he never won, but we were chatting and he goes, the one thing I noticed? He goes, when you switched helmets, your style looks so much better. And he's like, it was just the helmet. I was like, well, I had to laugh.
It's true. It's true.
The 98 season, I don't know how Supercross went. Doesn't sound like you know either, but you came really close outdoors.
Donnie, can you
Does
give
it
us
matter? Did I win? No, it doesn't really matter.
But you were close outdoors, second that championship. That was the year Henry's riding the 400 or 425.
So the bike is now getting better, right? I mean, we actually got some power. We still not hole shotting. I mean, getting out hole shot every week, but I mean, at least it's rideable. I mean, I think we were maybe up to 47, 48 horsepower at that point, something like that.
And everyone else has progressed a little more.
Yeah,
as
they're
well.
at like 52, 53. Yeah, but at least we've got something that can.
Man, that's frustrating.
Oh, it was. I mean, I would go to Southwick, and I'm telling you, because it's kind of like the Lommel memory. I mean, I've got this throttle cable stretched to the max, and there's nothing you can do. These guys are like passing you. And you're like, "Ah."
What's your salary looking like these year after year? I mean, is it declining? Is it staying the same? Is it?
I'm trying to remember. It wasn't that great. I mean, I was probably with endorsements and everything, maybe 300, something like that. Not a lot.
So when you moved here, was it a multi-year deal?
That's a good question. No, it was a 1-year deal. Because, I mean, it was for such a low pay. I'm like, forget that. I'm not going to, But
okay, so then you re-signed.
Roger was good to work with, and he obviously knew that I was worth more than 75 grand.
So then when you re-signed, do you remember ever getting a multi-year deal? Or was this a lot of 1-year deals?
I think so, yeah. I think probably 96, 97, 98 maybe was a multi-year deal, something like that, yeah. And I was kind of grateful for it because I might have been...
You weren't sure, yeah.
I might have been on pink Kawasaki's again.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the 98 championship where you came so close, was there any spark where you're like, okay, I came really close, like I can do this?
Yeah, no, I knew I could do it. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm not taking anything away from Doug Henry. He was an awesome rider, and that year he was on, and I think he would have won it on a 252.
He was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those guys, he had paid his dues, and it was one of those years it just seemed like it was meant to be.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was a huge advantage, that bike. There's no... I mean, the thicker the soil, the more they tilled the dirt, I mean, he would wax us.
But even when it was hard pack, it's an advantage there, too, because of the traction.
Yeah.
The downsides with especially that works bike, which was able to cut the weight down.
Yeah.
aside from stalling it,
Yeah.
it didn't have a lot of downsides. You know.
No, I mean, yeah, but always I'd be coming from the back. Every single mode I'd be coming from the back.
Were you? I mean, what did you weigh? 200 when you were racing?
About 185.
Okay, a little heavier than most guys, I would say, though,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm thinking about like Lusk, Doug wasn't a real big dude. They were skinny.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those guys.
Jeff, I bet Jeff was 165, 160.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably had 20 pounds on guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't help.
And 6 horsepower
Albertine
less.
bones are like heavy. Yeah.
Made of lead.
But no, I mean, the 98 season, it definitely opened my eyes to, okay, I think I can
We're
do
getting
this.
there, like,
yeah, we're
yeah.
getting there. I mean, steadily we're progressing. We're getting better and better, yeah.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the frustration because you always seemed like you were always positive. You know, you're always like, you know, I don't know. You never seemed like
Yeah.
you were just deflated.
No, I mean, I was dying inside. I mean, there was a few years where I seriously, I mean, it was like, and you know, you've had LaRocca and a couple other guys talking about confidence and that. I mean, the confidence is key. And I mean, you know, maybe I portrayed it on the outside, but inside I was like this little boy in a corner getting whipped. It was like really tough.
Yeah. Well, I've been there, so I appreciate the choir. I spent most of my career curled up in the fetal position.
Oh, man.
So 99, this was your year. Let's talk about your championship year. How did Supercross go that year? I mean, you were 9th overall in the championship.
Yeah, not that great. I mean, it was okay. I had some good results in that. Yeah, just for me, Supercross never came naturally. It was never something that was easy for me. It just, you know, the outdoors, you can override things and you can make up time, right? By just hanging it on a little longer, being a little more aggressive. Supercross is finesse, and I you know, really struggled with finesse. So yeah, it just wasn't easy. But the good thing is I came into the outdoor series healthy, and that was the key.
Yeah.
You got through that whole year without injury?
I may have maybe missed a race or something, but at
nothing
least by
major.
the end,
Yeah.
when this outdoor started, I was healthy.
And the bike at this point, you said, was
Yeah,
competitive.
Bike had got to a good point. Yeah, it was
Okay.
pretty good. Yeah. So start the outdoors, and I am so ready. I'm so prepared. I've been up in the Yucca Valley, high desert. I mean, I'm doing like 35, 40-minute motors a day. I mean, I was like really, really prepared. I mean, I'd never been worked that hard ever. But I said, I mean, I literally remember saying,
Laps, China, laps.
I remember saying, I am not retiring until I win a championship. I'm not. And I was so prepared that year, so prepared.
It paid off. So
But the first couple of rounds, the first couple of rounds weren't on the podium.
No, first rounds were terrible. I mean, so first race I go to Glen Helen, and I get caught up, first turn pile up, I can't remember, really bad results. Second race, go to Hangtown, first turn pile up again, can't remember, but like really, really bad results.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So now I've worked my butt off, I've paid my dues, I've got to this point, and I am so frustrated. So I go to Mount Morris, and I don't know if you guys remember my buddy Steve Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
Chappie, right? So Chappie's a good friend of mine, and he's the local chaplain that goes to all the races and stuff like that. So I'm sitting there having dinner with him, and I said, Steve, I promise you now I am ready to quit. I said, I'm not joking. I'm ready to quit. I have put in my heart and soul everything I have to win, and nothing's going right. I mean, this is my year. I'm totally prepared. The bike's ready. Everything. Nothing's going right. First 2 races suck. I'm like 10th in the championship. And he said, well, why don't you tell the Lord that? I said, really? He said, yeah, tell the Lord that. So I went back to the hotel room that night and literally got on my knees. I said, God, I don't know what your plan is for my life, but you know that you've put me in this place, and I've worked harder than I've ever worked. And you know I'm not joking. I'm ready to quit. I'm done. I've given it my heart and soul. I've given it everything I got, and it's not coming right. I'm ready to quit. And I kind of like left it at that. Anyway, I went to Mount Morris and ended up going 1-1 on the Sunday.
I still remember that gnarly off camber,
Yeah.
and everyone was going to the outside, and you were climbing that hill up the inside.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
And I think, I mean, that was the turning point in my whole championship. And I truly think God knew that I was serious. I mean, I wasn't BSing. I mean, I was serious. I was ready to quit.
yeah.
And, you know, not to say that, all of a sudden I'm going to win because I told him I'm ready to quit. But I think he'd allowed me to go through some really tough times and, you know, built up a lot of character.
Lots of character.
Lots of character. I got way more character than I want.
Well, So the rest of the year, it just kind of kept clicking after that?
Yeah, great year. Great year. Yeah, it was just went from strength to strength. I can't remember how many nationals I won, maybe 5 or 6, but I was always there, top 3. Millville, I went 1-1, and then it was really sweet to win Steel City 1-1 too, and it was great. First time Suzuki had won a championship in 18 years.
Yeah,
an outdoor 250 title.
I think there was a lot of relief from your side, but I think even from like Roger and Ian and everyone, you could tell like, you know, you guys had stuck through thick and thin, but
yeah.
I think it was kind of publicly known. Yeah, exactly.
Very thin.
But I think publicly there was, you know, a lot of even, you know, just murmur about, will these guys be able to figure it out? Are they going to stick together?
Yeah.
Are they going to part ways? You know, it's not working out. They try to get this team up together and it's just not panning out. So,
and you think about it, they'd been working for 4 years without any substantial results, right? I mean,
that's
4 years.
It's a long time to.
Yeah.
In motocross terms, that is a long time.
That's a long time. That's a half a career.
So Honda didn't give you an NSX when you won that championship. Did you get a Suzuki Samurai when you were done with this one?
No, I got a DR 350. No, they were very appreciative, and I was too, because I mean they could have let me go at any point because I was not performing previous to that. So
yeah,
it was great.
I remember that Steel City when you pulled up and that Amy was there, and yeah, it was. I remember it as a fan. So it's like, because you and Amy weren't married, correct?
No, we'd already been married.
Oh,
yeah.
you did get married? Okay.
Yeah. And that was one thing people were like, oh, dude, and this was the old days, right? Well, once you get married, there's no more championships. You know, you're done.
Isn't that funny that used to be in the 90s, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, once you get married, your racing career's done.
Yeah.
And then there was a flip, and it was like, you wanted to be married, get the motorhome, take the whole family to the races.
Well, then they said after that, they said, oh, if you have kids, you're not going to win a championship.
Yeah, that's right.
And then now it's like everybody has kids and married.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's changed. I mean, I think it's for the better.
Yeah.
It was a pretty ugly culture for a while there in the 90s. So
it was just different.
Yeah, no, so I was one of the first guys that actually got married and actually won a championship, and it was good.
How did that title compare with your world championship?
It was as sweet, but it was different because it was redemptive. I mean, you know, you win 3 back-to-back world championships. It's like, my gosh, I'm the man.
You're expecting it almost.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you must take it for granted.
The first one was obviously incredible. The next 2 were like, but then this one was like, my gosh, finally, because I mean, it was a dry spell for a long, long time.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were happy. You know, there's those guys that, like you said, you don't make a lot of enemies in the pits, and there's certain guys that people are just happy for, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you were one of those guys. It was cool to see you enjoy that success.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I say that now that I wasn't going to quit until I won a championship, but who knows if I hadn't got it that year. But yeah, I mean, I was so determined. I mean, I'd worked harder than I could look up and down the start line both ways and know that I was going to kick everybody's ass. I was fitter than anybody, and I wanted it more. I mean, in all honesty, Wyndham should have won that championship hands down. I mean, from a talent perspective, he has more talent in his pinky than I have in my whole body. I mean, that guy's amazing. He would whole shot race after race after race. I mean, that was his championship for sure. I just wanted it more. Simple as that.
That's crazy.
Well, even in 07, you know, I raced with K-Dub, and there was times it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the same thing. I think I really, really wanted it, because even at the last moto at Glen Helen, I didn't need a win. I had the championship in the bag, and I just couldn't push. And he had been pretty good at the end of the season, here and there. And it was almost like, it's the last race of the year. I'm just going to go out and dominate. And he just went, checked out. And I was like, where the hell was that?
Yeah. I mean,
like, it was unbelievable.
So after I retired, I was at the Supercross track with him and Pastrana. And as talented as Travis is, I mean, there was like these technical sections they would work on. And K-Dub would just do it like it was nothing. And Travis would try it, and he'd get it maybe 2 out of 10 times and almost crash every other time. And K-Dub would just do it like it was nothing. I mean, that guy on a motorcycle is so unbelievably talented.
Impressive.
And I mean, that's how he was able to, have a long career as he did. I mean, he was probably only riding at 80% most of the time.
Yeah.
Seriously. Whereas I was at 110 all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guy did have a lot of talent. I mean, I remember being there and watching him just chase down Ricky, pass him, and then going, I didn't think anyone could physically go faster than Ricky was. And when you watch that, it was like, it like almost pick your jaw up.
Yeah.
Well, that year, I don't know if you remember the conversation we had, but you had a big impact on my life. You mentioned Steve Hudson.
Yeah.
But I don't remember at some point that year, like I had won a Supercross that year. I was podium on nationals. Things were going great. I was making good money for a 22-year-old. But I was just like unhappy. And like you said, well, I think I might have the answer. Why don't you come to my house this Tuesday night or whatever it was to your Bible study?
Yeah.
And Steve Hudson got me a Bible.
That was the Corona house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like this whole serendipitous thing, or it was a God thing or whatever. I met my wife, whose father was a pastor. And it was like just all these things kind of happened in a probably a 3 or 4 month window. And changed my life.
Awesome, bro. It's the way.
Jeez, bro,
the
you're
way
pretty
it works.
impactful, aren't you? Yo.
You know,
That's true.
I often think about that movie, you know, It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. You know, basically he gets to see a picture of what the world would be if he had not been born, right? And, you know, it's pretty cool when you think back. You don't know all the people you've impacted, but hopefully you've impacted a lot in good ways.
Well, right, especially, you know, that's what we're called to do is take that and impact people. So you have. I don't know if you ever knew that or not. You also said something else. This might have been after we were done racing, but I said, man, you know, like I feel like I'm at the point I was really having a hard time letting go of like my lack of success. I say, man, if I could have just won that one stupid 125 championship, I would have felt like all the scars I have, all the aches and pains, all the things that I sacrificed when I was younger, or the money my dad spent would have been worth it because I would have something to like show for it, you know. And you're like, yeah, that's one way to look at it. But you know, you said I've won world championships and a national championship, but I really my main thing was I wanted to win a Supercross championship, and I never did. So it doesn't matter what you did or didn't accomplish. Be grateful for what you did.
Yeah.
And just know that everybody always wants more. No one's like completely satisfied, right?
Yeah.
And it just sort of changed my perspective on the way I looked at it. Now I'm like, you know what? I'm lucky to have done what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't make it as far as I wanted, but I made it farther than the vast majority.
99.9.
Yeah.
So, and I'm healthy. I'm, you know, for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But-
Dude, we saw you with your shirt off.
Dude, you ripped, man.
You can hold your breath a long time because you were...
Is that why you guys stopped doing live shows? Because the ladies will come in and
Amber was getting upset because she was working the bar and the ladies were winking in the front row, and it got really weird.
Amber loves tending bars. She has a blast back there. She I don't know if she told you this, but at one of the Laguna shows, guys were wanting to tip her. You know, she goes, I don't. You know, this beer's free. Like, if you want to tip me, just tell me I look pretty. And so that was the thing. Guys go, hey, you're beautiful, thank you. You know, and so I at the halftime break, I go back there, and these guys are walking up, and they're all, oh, thanks, you're beautiful. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, guy after guy, you're amazing. Oh, and I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm right here, you know.
She's like, I'm winning my own championship in the back. Yeah, okay, piss off.
Amber is a party.
Oh yeah, she's
a one-person party.
I told her she's my championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
all have things. I mean, for me, one thing that bugs me is I never won a 250/now 450 main event. I've finished everywhere but first.
So we all have that stuff, right? That you know, it's at different levels. But
And people go, "You never won a..." I'm like, "No, can
Drop
wait, you
it.
never won? Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes, okay." Like,
Hey, and let me tell you something. There's millions of fans out there that never had the opportunity ever to even think about doing any of that stuff. And they all wish they could have just lined up. Forget about even finishing a race.
it's all it's true. It's relative.
But it's tough though, because we all have our goals of like, you know, okay, I want to do this, then this, and this, and it's like you get to where you get.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always something on the table.
It really comes back to that attitude of gratitude, right? I mean, really, because at the end of the day, you will never, the lust of the flesh is never satisfied, right? You're always going to want more.
Well, because once you get to that first goal, you raise the bar.
I mean,
and you raise the bar, you raise the bar, you raise the bar, and eventually, at some point, we retire. We're like, we didn't get that last goal, so we're all pissed off.
I mean, McGrath won how many championships? I'm sure he probably wishes he won one or two more, right? I mean, so it really is perspective and being grateful for what we have.
And somebody else said something too. I don't remember where I got this, but they said really there's only one championship, and that is at the end of your life, and you look back on your whole body of work, right? Like that's the championship that counts. So like racing is a small part of that.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with the rest of it? What, you know what I mean? How was your marriage? How was your kids? How did you raise them? Were you a good dad? Did you help? Did you give to charity? You know what I mean? Like your whole body of work.
Yeah.
And
no,
so
you're right. I mean, and as you get older, motocross, I mean, it was our life. It was our everything, right? I mean, I've been retired for 20 years now. It's crazy. And when I look back, I mean, I have absolutely no regrets. I mean, I would have done some things differently, but I look back at the advantages it's given me in life. And, just transitioning out of motocross, I mean, when I was watching Ricky's interview and Kerry Hart, that work ethic and the drive and the determination that those two have, and everybody, what it teaches you, professional sports teaches you so many good things. I mean, I've seen you successful, and you're successful. You can transfer those things to anything in life.
Amen.
Be successful.
If you have a never roll over, never say die kind of attitude,
don't
and
quit.
go, there's going to be people that laugh at your goals or your dreams and say this what But like you said, I think motocross teaches us how to deal with adversity, as long as you don't have that hangover, meaning I think bring what happened in motocross into the rest of your life. If you can separate that and move on to that next chapter and take those same principles, all those guys end up doing well. I mean, you go look in our industry, the people that have kept that, whether it's a Brock Glover, just running Dunlop. I mean, that's a big organization, big, undertaking. There's a lot of people that have done a lot of great things.
And he does that with the same tenacity that he raced with. There's no one that's more into it and serious about it than Brock. He puts his whole heart into that. And that's why he's so successful. So whatever it is, I agree with you 100%. So wrapping this up, the 2000 season looked like it was going to be good for you. You won was it Osaka or some race in Japan? Early on, pre-season.
Yeah, you're right. I think I passed Bradshaw on the last lap, maybe, or something like that.
Was it Osaka or Tokyo?
I think it was Tokyo.
Tokyo, okay.
Supercross, yeah. I mean, I was fully ready to defend my title. I mean, I was like, bring it. I'm ready. Let's do it. And the bike was continuing to get better. And
how was your mindset going into Supercross, though? I mean, you've now won your motocross championship.
Now I'm ready to win the Supercross championship.
Did you think,
absolutely,
we have a chance?
Absolutely. I was like, I trained my butt off, and the bike was good, as I mentioned. Did more laps China than anybody. I was fully ready to win the Supercross title because that was my goal. I mean, okay, I've achieved the outdoor, now I want to win the Supercross. And
the other part of that question was, did you also know or think that this could be your last year?
Not at that point.
Okay.
No, not at that point.
You were still fully invested. We were going racing.
In fact, you had signed a 2-year deal with Suzuki, right?
2 deal.
2 more years.
Oh, that's right. I remember this.
Yeah. So I was making more money than I ever made in my career. I mean, it was a good time. All in.
You had some cool gear.
Yeah, I had some cool
Championship
gear.
bonus good?
Championship bonus. I mean, I don't think it's what it is now, but it was good stuff. Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I think all in with all endorsements and that, I was probably making about $1.5 million a year.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big increase from a couple of years earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. But this was before all the energy drinks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But so it was good. So, obviously started off and then just it didn't go quite as good as according to plan. Speed was good. I mean, I was definitely there, and then ended up going to Atlanta Supercross press day or practice, I think, one of the two. Just had this little crash, caught a hay bale, kind of pulled my leg off the side, and I crashed on this jump. Slow. And next minute, femur broke.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And that was sucky.
First time you broke a femur?
Yeah, first time ever. Yeah. So they drove us around to 3 different hospitals. Eventually found one that would take us. Yeah, that was an adventure.
Nothing better than having a broken femur and doing the tour of a city.
Yeah, seriously, because I literally 3 different hospitals. No, we can't take him. So I pull up. And the second I get there, they cut my pants off, and they get this Makita drill with one of these long metal spikes. Guy putting the IV in still, and they start drill this thing through the bottom of my tib fib to get it into traction, right? Because the thing's all. And I'm like, Anyway, that was quick. And
what hospital was this? This
is
like
some hospital in Atlanta. I can't remember. Anyway, so the worst
It was their
part
fourth
is
choice of hospital, so now we're
that's-
reaching deep into the
That's
barrel.
not protocol. Like,
no, that wasn't.
there's
cool.
several different devices that pull traction.
No, this one they screwed a metal rod right through bottom, just below the kneecap, right through, and then like tied some things on and put the weight off the end of the bed. Anyway, that's not the
Yikes.
worst of it. So Chappie's there, and we got Bobby Nichols, who was my agent at the time. So finally, they're ready to wheel me into surgery. So the guy pulls the bed into the elevator. And the door starts closing, and the weight is on the outside of the bed, outside of the doors. And they're like, whoa! And they stop it just in time. Because, I mean, you imagine, they would have ripped my leg right off.
Oh, my gosh.
So the guy goes, oh, my mistake. And he just picks the weight up and pops it on the bed. Now my leg's in traction, like fully spasmed again. Oh, my gosh. It was quite the adventure.
That was quite a hospital you were at.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the hospital when you walk in.
It's like a mental facility.
They don't have all those plaques and accolades on the wall. They're the other hospital.
Oh, man. Yeah. It was
They just got one that goes recently reinstated health department.
Yeah.
We're pretty good.
There's just
Yeah.
a pretty good, you know.
We'll get your medical
We're all right.
injuries in an okay place.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
So anyway, but yeah, 7 weeks later was riding.
Jeez.
Because 11 weeks later was Glen Helen, and I wanted to defend my title. So, I was on the bike in 7 weeks and just
That's
trained
really
and trained.
short.
They rotted it, right?
Yeah, they rotted, yeah.
One
Once you-
clean break.
Yeah, I was clean break.
Once you rot it, it's stable.
Yeah, but
you still limp for a long time.
Yeah,
Huh? Did you limp for a while?
It was a sucky injury, definitely the worst.
You still have the pin, the rod in?
No, I had it removed.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So anyway, Glen Helen, I think I got second or third, maybe fourth, something like that. Yeah, decent comeback. And then I heard Ricky talking about Mount Morris in 2000, that mud fest. And
oh yeah.
I literally am riding around, and I've crashed like 4 times in the mud, and I pull off the track. Ian was not my mechanic in the time; it was Joey Maurer.
Yeah, that was when Ian knew.
What did Ian?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, what happened that year?
So Ian actually was not with me for my outdoor title. So he actually decided he was going to take the inside job and sort of run the team, engines and development and stuff like that. I don't want to say we'd had a rough patch, but we'd maybe had a little bit of a rough patch. I don't think it was anything ugly. I mean, we're still best friends to this day. But I think he needed a change.
Yeah.
He'd been a little sick of being on the road all the time and whatever.
I felt like I had a little bit of that with my uncle Andrew. He was my Ian. He came to Europe with me, and
Yeah.
we'd done all this, and then we moved here, and then after 03, it was like 04, and it's just some of the struggles of KTM. I felt like we were getting on each other's nerves. Like, we'd be at Thanksgiving and be like, "Yo, if you didn't blow that race," and I'm like, "Well, shut up. We're at Thanksgiving." Like personal,
together
family,
too much.
And then it was almost like, you know what? Maybe it's better for him. And he went and worked with Metcalf, still with the team, and I went my direction, and we're very close to this day. Same thing, but I think it's like a marriage. But imagine in a marriage when no one can afford the mortgage and keep the lights on, and you just you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough.
And no
it's
benefits.
Yeah.
No benefits.
Yeah.
I hope. Anyway, I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah, I think it does. It wears.
Yeah.
It wears.
A marriage
Good
with no benefits
relationship.
is not going to work. I'm
Yes,
just telling you, I'm out.
exactly. Good way to put it, Ping. Thanks for simplifying it.
Yeah, but anyway, so I've crashed 4 times, and I pulled off the track, and I said to Joey, "I'm done." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And this was the first time in my entire career that I'd pulled off the track without my bike being broken or me being injured. And I said, "I'm done." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "I don't want to race right now." I went back to the pits, and that was the beginning of the end for me. I was like,
What was that conversation like after as you got back to the truck and pulled your helmet off? Was Roger there?
Roger was there. But yeah, I mean, I was very mixed up emotions and stuff like that. I was like, this is weird, because I'd never pulled off ever. I mean, I was always charged to the front.
That was 2000, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think at the end of the day, I had worked so hard to pull myself out of the hole that I'd got myself into that I was fully ready to defend my title. I was fully prepared, but I didn't have it in me a year more to give it another 110%. I could ride around for the paycheck. I mean, no problem. But I'd never raced for money, ever. I always raced to win. And if I didn't feel like I could win, it's time to move on and do something else. I mean, it was a rough year the rest of the season just because I had all these thoughts in my mind.
And then obviously that was when Ricky went on his tear.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember. You had a podium or two, didn't you?
Probably. Yeah.
But you just felt inside like you would.
Well, I didn't feel like I could give it enough
Everything
to
you
win.
need. Yeah.
And if you can't give it enough to win, why? Why be in it?
So then
I was only in it to win it.
you had a contract for the following year,
Yeah.
and now you've lost that the will to win. What do you want to call it? When do you have that conversation with and was it with Roger? I mean, obviously he's still running the show, so you.
So I had the conversation with him early, and because I said, "Listen, I still
early
want you,
meaning not long after Mount Morris."
Yeah, not long after Mount Morris. I still want to give you guys time to get a new rider for 2001 because I just don't feel like I can give you 100% anymore.
And you were 100% sure, like it was crystal clear.
You weren't nervous because once you say that, you know that you've basically closed the door on yourself.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I second-guessed myself 1,000 times, but I mean, because you're closing the door to a chapter of your life that's 20-something years old, So it was a very tough decision, and I flip-flopped many, many times, and I thought, well, maybe I should just do an outdoor season, or maybe I should just do this or whatever. But I'm glad I made the decision I did. It was the right time. And again, I never raced for money. I raced to win, and if I didn't feel like I could win, move on.
I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was tough to say goodbye to the paycheck and everything, but Suzuki appreciated it. I think that's when they hired Wyndham for the following year, and gave them time to sign the guy up.
But didn't you race like in Glen Helen of 03 or something? Didn't you race another race?
I did a couple of races here and there.
Yeah.
That was that World Cup when they canceled donations.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think I kind of helped convince you to come do that one.
Probably. At a social event?
Yes. That was a social event. No, so what was funny is anyone that watches the show knows that LB's always been my guy, but in 2000, what was really cool for me is I won the World Championship, and Greg had announced his retirement. But we'd never raced together. We'd never been on the same track, like nothing. And then all of a sudden, Motocross of Nations comes up, and we're teammates. And I remember I was like, it was a cool. I feel like it was a little bit of that, almost a crossing of the guard, like the handoff. Like he was out and I was moving to the US, and we got to race that last race.
That was the one at Glen Helen that was where...
No. In 2000, the Nations was Saint-Jean-d'Angely in France.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd you guys do that year?
We had the worst of luck too. We went down the start again.
Yeah.
Who was your other guy? Who was the...
It was meant to be Doug Moore, and he broke his scaphoid. And Ryan Hunt was the South African champion.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to Ryan, he came there, but he was out of his element.
Yeah.
I remember first moto was 125-500. You would have been watching. And I got a ripping start for the 125 rider. And I'm in the top 10. And I get into like 6th or 7th, and I look back because I can hear big bikes behind me, and I see Ryan Hunt. And right behind him was Chad Reed on a 426, ironically. And I'm like, dude, we're crushing it. I'm the first 125 he's here. I'm like, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything's aligned. And then I don't know what the hell happened, but he threw out the anchor. Then the next moto, we were down in the first turn, second turn. That was interesting. And then, I think we tied with Great Britain for 4th, but we got 5th.
That's still pretty good.
But at the time, that was South Africa's best result.
Probably.
I think you guys in the 1 year got 5th or 6th as well. Schwadenstadt, I think, 93.
Oh my gosh, that was the worst day of racing ever. So my old man and I are sharing a room, right? We're staying in this little bed and breakfast in Schweinenstadt in Austria. And
is this near the Schwanstein Castle or whatever? Is it somewhere near there?
I don't know. Some Schwanenschwinger.
Schwadenstadt, Austria.
Anyway, so my old man's been hanging out with the Polish and the Czech dudes, like,
and my old man
indulging in a little vodka.
Old man
oh, that's right.
Was Richard Moor's mechanic, because that's when I broke my femur. My dad helped the guy who was South African champion, and he got selected to go over.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think your old man and my old man were just blasted. I wasn't there, but I heard about it.
So he comes to the room, and I'm like, all right, Dad, ready to go sleep? And like within 4 nanoseconds, he's out. snoring so loud. So eventually, like an hour and a half later, I still can't go to sleep. So I take the whole mattress and I put it in the bathroom, close the door, still can't go to sleep. So now it's like 3 in the morning and I haven't had a wink of sleep because I'm always cutting logs. I literally take the duvet and a pillow and go and sleep under the dining room table in the dining hall. Seriously, and I think I had like 2 hours of sleep that night. And the next day I rode terribly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Did you have any other good motocross nation stories, or?
Well, he hit a deer.
How many times? Yeah.
How many other great stories could he have? Did you win individually?
No, never. I would have won that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a great race after I retired. Like my entire career, I'd never raced a GP or national, obviously, in South Africa. Never. So Sun City, they finally had a GP in 2004.
The other Sun City.
Okay.
And I kind of lined some things up with Sylvain Gabors and that I could go do this GP in South Africa. So I'd already been retired for 3 years.
Yeah, were you still riding a lot? I'm trying to think.
No, I wasn't, and that was the problem. So long story short, I'd never ridden a 4-stroke in my life. Suzuki had just come out. Actually, I think there was only the factory 450 4-strokes.
It was their prototype.
Yeah.
Because only the next year was production, 05.
Okay.
So I show up at Sun City. I've literally had 6 weeks to train, and I've trained way too much. So I get there, I'm like physically exhausted, completely done. End up getting like diarrhea and all the fun stuff, and like completely dehydrated and whatever.
Too many Terry chicken livers?
Terry.
Not enough. But anyway,
Terry was another situation.
The first time I ever got on a 4-stroke was the day of practice, free practice, the day before the GP. Anyway, I think I posted like 5th or 6th fastest time or whatever. But what was so cool is in the second moto, I ended up passing one of the guys for the lead, and I led the thing for like 5 or 6 laps or something till the
and
tongue
they went
got stuck
nuts.
And the crowd was going crazy. I mean, it was such a great memory, just to actually lead a GP in my home territory.
They loved it.
Big crowd? Were you there?
I was not there, but I remember it was on the. I'd come back from the States. 04 was the end for me with KTM. So when I came back, I was in not the best of moods, but I remember one of our friends had it recorded, and they were showing it on Top Sport.
Yeah.
And it was kind of. I think it's one of those things that I wish that I could have raced in front of my home crowd at a GP.
Yeah.
And I think for you, it was like watching that it was cool to see.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Good crowd there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was probably 15,000, 20,000, something like that. I can't remember.
So for there,
I was
that's
going to say, for there, it was, at a typical national, if you take out family and close friends, nobody shows up. You know what I mean? Like you don't even get a mechanics pass in South Africa because they're like, we're just losing money on entry.
Yeah.
So we're just going to nickel and dime everyone.
Yeah.
So first of all, you kind of fit into that. Like I always say that there's a 10-year window for most guys, and there's always the Larocos and whoever's, but you get 10 years where you can deal with the stress, the physical work, the psychological struggles of, especially like you talk about that downward spiral of all of it, fitness,
the injuries.
So you kind of fit right in that 9-10 year window.
An 11-year pro career.
92,000, yes.
Yeah.
So do you think you're just emotionally fried, kind of like just mentally, you just can't keep it going?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the level, I mean, I picked up my boy today, and he's like, "How was your workout?" I went to do a soccer mom's CrossFit, the Orange Theory thing.
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, I don't love working out that much." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Well, every time I worked out when I was a pro, I worked out to the point where I was literally about to throw up. I mean, that's the intensity that you need, right? I mean, you are busting your butt all the time. It's no just fun workouts. So yeah, that intensity and that level was exhausting, and there's only so long you can do it.
Yeah.
That's why most guys retire at 27, 28.
Yeah.
Well, even like, with Carmichael, I mean, look at him. He was so good, but just watching his career, it seemed like he was at 110% all the time. And even when he could have won, he walked away. And a lot of guys can't do that. But I think, like you said with Ricky, the fear, the failure potential, all those things combined, I think for him it was so overwhelming. Then he took a step away, and now he still goes and races here and rides there and does all this because there's not that,
he's not expected
massive
to win.
intent. Now it's fun again. He can go to Australia and do a few parade laps, make some money, sign some autographs, shake hands, kiss babies, and they love it.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, you got to be under a 47-second lap time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're not going to invite you back.
You don't hear a lot of like long thought about retirement. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, look at Wyndham when he called it, and I was the same way. I knew, like right away, this is it. I was kind of like you. I finished out the season, but I knew it. I'm done.
This year for Reedy has got to be the most painful year of his life. I mean, I personally would die if I knew that I was going to retire at the end of the year, and you're going to race the entire year and get the results that he's getting now when he's a winner. I mean, that guy's a winner. It would be very painful for me. I would not be able to do it.
Yeah.
I think, well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people would have walked away sooner, but different things make different guys tick.
Again.
And Chad, I think, is just, I hate to say it, but I think what you're saying, the results, I think I don't want to say anticipated this, but I think he's doing this because he's been there so long, and it's a farewell tour. I mean, he almost announced it before the season started. It wasn't like, I'm going to try to win my third title. It was one last ride. Yeah. I mean, that to me is a little bit like, this is closure for him. And everyone does it differently.
Yeah, totally.
But he's been able to, I mean, he's battled Ricky and James. I mean, he's battled with guys over generations.
Yeah.
So I respect that in one sense.
Totally.
But I agree with you. I'm the kind of person like, I couldn't be out there.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he doesn't just come out, do opening ceremonies, sign autographs in the pits, and if you really want to go and do that,
call it a day.
To be racing those LCQs and like.
But you know what? You see him in the LCQ. I guarantee if he gets a bad start, you'll see a little glimpse and go, "Whoa," because he'll dig deep because he doesn't want to fail either.
Yeah, he's a deep digging guy, man.
Yeah,
it's tough.
All right, so after it was all over, did you jump into real estate right away? I'm trying to remember the timeline of it.
Yeah, so 2000, end of 2000, 2001, I'm working a little bit with Team Suzuki and that, and then I'm like, this is not for me. I mean, I don't want to be traveling to the races every week, and,
When you're not racing, the travel seems a little different.
And you're not making the big bucks. So I kind of had no idea what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I'm like, I don't have a high school graduation. I certainly don't have college. I'm interested in real estate, but I have no idea how to do it or what to do. Anyway, long story short, I ended up getting involved with this guy. And the very first deal we ever did, I put up $250,000, and 9 months later, I got my money back plus a check for $860,000. And I'm like,
this was what's his name?
Oh, George.
George, that's right. Okay.
George of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle. So, so I mean, I get this money back. I'm like, what the heck? I've been racing all these years. This is a piece of cake. I mean, this is so easy. Next deal we do, we build like 63 houses in Palm Springs, and I make another $1.5 million. I'm like, what the heck? This is like so easy. This was like the wave, right, that was building. So
03, 04.
Yeah. So I'm like, and all of a sudden they're talking about rumors of like, maybe there's a slowdown coming, and old Greenspan's like it's going to be a soft landing, and it's not going to be a big crash. So we're doing a bunch of deals, and I'm signing personal guarantees for like, at one point I had $37 million in personal guarantees with Wells Fargo and Citibank and different loans. Because, if you're building a housing tract, right, you put up $1 million or whatever of your own money, they will loan you the rest, right? But they want to see you put up this money. And, it costs a lot of money to put in water, sewer, roads, infrastructure, things like that. $12 million here, 10 there, whatever. And next thing, the music stopped. And it was probably leading up to the next most painful decade of my life because, so now I've got banks calling me. All the loans are being called because the values have dropped. You buy something for $1 million, it's now worth $500,000, if that, and you try and find somebody who's going to buy it for $500,000,
right,
or lend you the money. Nobody.
Yeah.
So literally I almost lost everything. There was 4 years where I made zero, nothing.
And Amy wasn't working at this point, right?
She was not working. No, she was raising kids, and
so you were. Those were thin times.
Well,
yeah.
There was the other aspect too. which is you had, let's be honest, friends invest money.
Yeah.
Myself, DaCosta, many others.
Yep.
Things turned sideways. I mean, I remember we had a couple conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember hearing it in your voice. I mean, you sounded, I don't even know how to explain it, like almost in such disbelief at what had happened. And you're like, I got friends that are mad at me because they're looking at me, you know. And I remember that. I felt for you, even though I lost a fair bit too. I know you lost a lot, and a lot of other people did, but I remember there was some.
No, it was. I'm not kidding. It's probably one of the hardest periods of my life. So 2008, the real estate crash happens. All these deals we have go sideways. I have investors and friends because I mean we were doing well. So I was like, hey, let's get friends involved. Let's do more deals, you know.
And some of those people had said to me, "Yeah, dude, we invested with Albie. We're making good money. Jump on in." I was like, "Shit, there we go."
So, so all of a sudden the wheels stop, and not only does my income disappear, but now we've lost all this money, and I've lost investor and friends' money, and that was so hard because some guys legitimately thought I'd stolen their money, legitimately. Ignorant, obviously. I mean, you got companies like Lehman Brothers and others that have been in business for hundreds of years or over 100 years, and they're now bankrupt. And they're now mad because I stole their money, I mean, in hindsight, I'm very sorry for the way it happened, and I'm very sorry I would never do it again the same way. I love real estate. It's a great wealth builder, but I'd never do it the same way. But yeah, I mean, it led to Amy and I were finally able to buy a house again last year. It was 10 years since I had to sell my last house. We moved 7 times in that period.
Is that right?
7 times, yeah.
I still remember, I think it was Ian that told me, Ian Harrison, but he told me that I think you've backed it up, but you had mentioned that you had to pawn your Rolex to make your rental payment on your house that you're renting, that you said, like, it's not even a mortgage payment, but... And then I said, well, what was your next plan? You're like, I was buying 30 days.
Yeah.
I pawned my watch to pay the bills, and then it was like, what's going to happen?
No, it's true. I mean, Ian helped me move numerous times, but the one time we moved into this little dump, and I couldn't make the rent, and I had to sell my Rolex to make the rent. And I literally remember crying on his shoulders. I was like, dude, why? Why?
How did it get here?
How did it get here?
I've had that moment, too, at some point.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
It's rough. So for any of these clowns out there who think that I'm riding high on the hog because I took everybody's money, bite me.
Well, you're doing pretty good. I see that Tommy Hilfiger shirt on there. Like,
hey,
you're
outlet
styling.
store. Outlet store.
Did you lose money in that commercial real estate deal in Arizona that I was in, my sister was in?
No, I was not involved in that. I lost money in a lot of other deals.
Anyway, there was a lot of shenanigans going. I had a guy. It ended up being a fake. Like he fudged all the loan paperwork. He was a con artist.
Yeah.
But he had $4 million he had raised. 50,000 of it was mine. My sister was in for 100. Bunch of my friends.
Yeah.
And this guy blew it all on some offshore casino and then killed himself, or was killed.
Wow.
Fiery car crash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, real estate's, it's like you said, it's a great wealth builder, but man, beware. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah. I mean, leverage at the end of the day is what will kill anybody, right?
Yeah.
If you have a lot of debt and that debt becomes due, if you can't pay it,
it's a bad deal.
You're done.
So, and I remember there was a point in there. You actually contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing like a radio show or a podcast in the motor world? Do you remember that?
I do.
I don't remember what.
I mean, listen, so after that happened, I mean, I was looking for anything. I mean, the entire economy, not just real estate, was dead.
Yeah.
It was completely dead. And I had all this drive and energy and obviously a need to feed my family. And I was like looking for anything. I mean, I was willing to do whatever.
We had a few conversations about
what
some
can
ideas
we do?
or printing clothing under licensing.
Yeah.
So what did you mainly do in that period to make money?
Sell Rolexes. Used Rolexes.
So in that 4-year period, I flipped 12 houses. Started off really well, and then kind of things tapered off where it was really hard to find the deals and stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, after 4 years of a lot of effort, a lot of hustling, I really made nothing. Yeah, tapped into all of our savings. Yeah, it was rough.
Jeez,
and then
that's scary.
It's very scary. I mean, obviously when you're up and, again, not a religious guy, but I remember when when these loans started coming due.
Yes, you've always been a religious guy.
No, that's for jokers. I have a relationship, not religion.
Okay.
But I remember saying to God, I said, God, you have always provided for me. And you're either the Lord of my finances and my money all the time or none of the time. So right now I'm going to choose all the time. And this was when all the crap was hitting the fan. Wells Fargo sucked money out of my bank account. There was an attachment on my house. And he got me through it, man. And now I have a great business. I'm completely in a different industry.
Yeah, so we'll take us
Am
into
I
that.
jumping ahead?
Yeah. Well,
no, it rolls.
So you had to rebuild. Like, tell us how you got into this next phase and what it is.
So again, a bicycle is easier to steer when it's moving than when it's stopped, right? So a friend of mine was selling electrical utility products to Arizona Public Service and Salt River Project in Arizona. He had a rep firm. And he said, hey, man, I'm looking to grow in California. Do you mind helping me out? I'm like, sure, I'll help you out. No problem. I had nothing going on. I said, whatever we bring in, we'll split 50-50. So, I mean, we were like I was making like 40 grand, maybe 50 grand for like 2 years. And anyway, I kind of saw the interesting thing is the rest of the economy is dead, but the utility industry's got money. They're spending money. It's like, wow. So I was with him for 2 years, and then I left and started my own agency. That's when I had to sell my Rolex because it takes a while to get a business going.
Oh, yeah.
But
I know.
I started my own business, got manufacturers on board to represent. So I kind of like act as a real estate agent, pretty much, a middleman between the utility and the manufacturer.
Okay.
And I mean, it's been growing nicely, steadily. I got a great team of guys that I work with, and a great gal that we work with. So we cover all of California. We've recently expanded to Washington, Oregon, and last year, even though we've been in business 7 years, I think we sold $64 million worth of product last year, which is pretty impressive in a short period of time.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so we're hustling.
Well, if there's
Every
decent
day.
profit margins in that, then you guys are doing very well.
Yeah.
And so, is it like insulators? Like, what is it?
Everything from transformers, insulators, street lights.
From what I understand, too, isn't there also a lot of just like upgrading of?
Yeah.
Hey, this is out of date. We got to upgrade these components or parts.
Well, if you drive around, you'll see a lot of the electrical grid is 40, 50 years or more years old. So there's a lot of money to be spent. And now with the wildfires and stuff like that, I mean, a lot of our products are going to be going in. So they're spending millions and millions of dollars. Yeah.
Well, it's actually a brilliant concept because it's one thing that we have to have.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have to have electricity.
And it's tax dollars at work. So there can be some wastage.
Some of it, right? Like, it's private.
It's
government.
quasi-government,
Yeah.
It's very, very regulated.
Wait, what? I was going to say. I mean, indirectly, there's taxpayer dollars that they're using, correct?
Ratepayer dollars.
Ratepayer, okay. Yeah,
ratepayer dollars.
Okay, yeah.
So, how's the family? Let's talk about that. You guys have been married, got to be 20 years now, huh?
21 years, man. Yeah, 21 years last September. Family.
That's awesome.
That's why you said it was before you.
Yeah,
won your title.
98. Everybody in the motocross industry gets married in September, right? Right after the outdoor start.
It's either their kids are born then or the wedding anniversary was also September.
Yeah, that was October, but.
Oh, you waited a month, huh? Yeah.
He's so cool like that.
I'm not doing September. That's so
so overrated. That's what everyone does.
Yeah, I've been married 21 years, have a great 16-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son.
So
they were at the house not that long ago. It was pretty cool.
Amber said something to me, and I kind of laughed at it. This was maybe a couple of years ago. I bumped into you, what was it, Glen Helen or something. I came and did that thing for your business.
Yeah.
And somehow along, I showed her a picture of your boy. We all took a picture together, and she goes, "Oh, he's really cute. We should set Ellie up with him." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." And then she said something the other day, and I'm like, I'm not real big on arranged marriages, but like this could actually work out. She's 13. I'm just saying. I'll send some photos over. You have a look.
You wait
Maybe
a while.
No, it's,
Wait till she's like 30, maybe. I think that'll be good.
all right.
Yeah.
She's well. Anyway,
Yeah, good luck on having them wait till they're 30. Good luck. It's 2020, bro.
so what are the kids into? I know your oldest rides a little bit, but
Yeah, the boys ride a little bit. Unfortunately, they ride as often as I do, which is not too often. Suzuki's very kind to still give me a bike. Can you believe that? So that's really appreciated. They both actually very much into rugby.
Is that right?
Yeah, Ethan would love to become a Springbok rugby player. That's his goal.
I don't even
Or
know
an
what that
eagle.
means. I've never heard of that word. Springbuck. Is that a team?
What? Jeez. Why don't you steer that dagger right in our heart
That's
there,
so
bro?
rude, Ping. We're the world champions, man. The Springbok rugby team.
I even
Oh, is
told
that
you we
right?
just won the World Cup at the
I
end
think
of last
the
year.
only team I've ever heard of is the All Blacks. Because Townley used to talk about them all the time.
We just crushed the All Blacks.
Ask them how they
Springbucks?
did.
That's what they're called?
Yeah, the Springboks.
What's that even mean? What's a springbuck?
It's a kind of deer in Africa.
Oh,
Yeah.
a springbuck.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, I got you.
Yeah.
Springbucks.
Dude, I
Like the one you killed in.
no, that was a deer.
Switzerland. Oh,
If it was a springbuck, he would have gone underneath it.
Yeah, that was a wolf
That
buck.
thing was a it was a limper. Don't limp, jump.
So his goal is to definitely become a pro rugby player. That
wow,
would be
cool.
some- yeah.
Has he got the build for it? Is he going to be bigger? You got to be pretty.
He is. He's
tall.
taller than me and
He-
heavier and stronger. Yeah, he's
Like Devin, my boy.
Yeah.
Like
I haven't seen Dev in a while, but I'm
yeah,
sure.
he wasn't there that day. But yeah, his boy Ethan, I was like, jeez.
Yeah.
What's up, kid? How you doing?
And what about your girl?
She's very artistic. She sings like an angel and loves cooking. She's like torn between culinary school or performing arts. She's not quite
Wow.
sure. Yeah. And
She's,
my
she's
little
sweet.
guy. Little guy loves rugby too.
And so what's next for you guys?
What's next, man? Well, just trying to raise kids successfully. You know, that's one thing I really liked with what Carrie was saying. You know, they're just legit good parents. You can tell they just love their kids, and that was very cool to see. So yeah, we love our kids. I'm not gonna lie, it's full throttle. If you're not running in 7 different
Dude,
directions,
3 kids is a lot.
oh my gosh, it's insane.
I have 2, and then my girlfriend
Yeah.
Jenny has 1. So
I feel like the jump from 2 to 3 is like
it's huge.
a whole nother level.
It's a whole.
Well, she said
nother level.
she said having 1, because she now is in the mix, so she went from 1 to 3, and she's like, it's
Yeah.
stupid. Like I don't know how people do this.
No, it's insane. I mean, 2's like a walk in the park.
We have days where we have to coordinate. She's picking up one kid, I'm getting the other one, then stopping by and get. There's
Yeah.
days it's like that,
Yeah.
and you're like, it's
Hey,
no joke.
hey,
It's no joke. It's actually true. I know you do it. You're like, I want to come to this event, but my daughter's got a state game, and I'm just not going to miss it. I'm like, don't miss it.
You should talk to my mom. I'm the youngest of 8 kids.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Does your mom talk about planes as much as you do?
My mom has her pilot's license.
Oh, I
Send your
can only
mom's
imagine.
send your mom's uterus my regards. 8 children.
Yeah, I'm the last too.
Yeah.
Did you walk out? No, I'm kidding. Too soon.
GL.
Too soon.
Too much.
Too soon. I know.
My mom owns
That's
guns
his
too.
mother, man.
Yeah,
You're a savage.
Well, hey, he was a natural born bungee jumper. He just came out. And sorry. All
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Anyway, back to Albie.
Okay, but the last question we always ask is, how do
Yeah.
you want to be remembered in the sport?
In the sport or in life?
Well, for the sake of the show, we'll stay the sport.
Well, because the sport is the people that in life that's different, but the people that are fans and that.
Yeah.
But you give us
They're gonna
both.
remember-
Give us
Yeah.
both.
No,
As a
well,
racer and as a person.
As a racer, I want to be remembered as a guy who always gave it his 100% and was just an all-around good guy. I suppose in life, I want to be somebody who's remembered for making an impact, not only in my family's life, my kids, but in others, and leaving a positive legacy.
That's it. Awesome, man. I think
Boom.
you're doing that.
Appreciate it, man. I'm trying.
Man, $64 million this company made last year.
No, I didn't make that. I sold that.
Your company,
I
right?
sold $64 million dollars
Well,
worth of
that's a big
product.
number.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I wish I'd
Jeez.
made $64 million.
No, I said your
I'd be-
company, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
what they sold, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. If I ever need a job, I'm going to come tap on your door. Hey, We're both just huge fans of you. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on.
Back at you guys,
been
man.
awesome.
Huge fans. Thanks for having me.
China.
Always a pleasure.
I know we don't see each other enough, but dang it, stay in touch.
Oh, I do want to tell you one last story,
Let's hear it.
if you got time.
I do.
So, Pit Byra, 2008. I haven't seen him in like 10 years, right? And him and my buddies, and he comes over for Anaheim Supercross, and he comes to my house for a barbecue. He's like, dude.
For a bri.
A bri.
Yeah.
He says, I'm so not happy with the whole KTM program. It's a freaking joke. Who should I hire? So I said, you know what? You need to hire Roger. And I said, you know what? You need to hire Roger and Ian. Because Suzuki was kind of waffling with what they were doing for the following year. They weren't sure if they were going to have a team or whatever. So he said, all right, true as Bob. He calls Roger, calls Ian, and the rest is history.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at you having an impact. There you go.
There
having
you
an
go.
impact.
Hey, who knew? Who knew?
You kind of screwing Suzuki because, like, you really took some horsepower out of their barn. But.
I think at that point they weren't 100% sure whether they were going to do a team or whatever. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, there's still some that, I don't know, unsurety. I mean, even coming into this year, JGR was not really official until pretty late.
Yeah.
Donnie, can you Google unsurety? I don't think that's a word.
We'll look up unsurety.
Oh,
Hey,
academic
Siri.
guy over here. No,
I have a guy.
I got it. Okay, I just rate the English language. Okay, cut me some slack.
I got a guy, Nate, who works with me, and he comes up with all these funny words. I call him Nateisms because it's just same deal. Yeah.
Well, Albie, thanks so much for taking the time, man.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to hang out with you. Greg Albertine. We'll be back.
WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
Yeah. I want nights where it feels so nice. Something in a photo. Right now. Let's do this right. Go slow out of moonlight.
myself. It's me against myself. I'm starting to black out, yeah. I've been staring at the stars. Running from myself. I'm running from myself. I'm starting to black out, yeah. I've been staring at the stars.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Whiskey Throttle Show. And this week's sponsor spotlight is going to be Sam Morton from SKDA. They came on this year. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, stoked to have you involved. I want to just mention the way you and I first met is I was building project bikes on a regular basis and scrolling through Instagram, just trying to get ideas of different bikes, and I kept coming across these graphics. And I'm like, God, these are really cool looking. And it was your company, all the designs you guys have a very clean, distinct look to them that's way outside the box from any other design really inside our sport for sure. So I reached out, you sent us some graphics, and we made a really cool looking bike. And anyway, stoked to have you a part of the show now.
Cheers, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to clear something up for a lot of people. What does SKDA stand for?
That's a long-winded response. I'll try and keep it simple. When I first started the company back 10 years ago now, actually, past 10 years, it was called Sickness, Sikness, because I was a fully sick kid, and, that's exactly how you do it, when you're starting out.
Want to make some sick graphics.
Exactly right, yeah. And because of that, because of the SIK, the logo was an S and a K. And then we got to a point where I realized that I wanted to reach a wider demographic than just the kids that
just the sickos,
fully sick. Exactly right. So I wanted to change the name, and at that stage, people were already referring to it as SK because of the logo. So it was a pretty easy fit. SK Designs, and it started as SK Designs Australia. So that was the SKDA.
Got it.
And then when we started up in the US a couple of years ago, that was SK Designs America. So you can pretty easily pair the two by just saying SKDA, and that sort of stuck.
Cool, man. Well, I know I get asked that a lot, and I didn't even know the answer.
So now you've got a long answer to give them, Sit down for a minute.
Well, when I was looking at the website, I saw it was SK Designs Australia, so I figured, okay, there's got to be an SK.
Yeah, what's
I didn't know if that was like the two partners' names, or I was like Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, happy accident. My wife's name is Kelsey.
Oh.
Sam. Oh, there you go.
All right.
Just roll with that.
Sort of happy. Yeah, I know. I could go with that, but we'll see how we go.
Happy little accidents like Bob Ross.
Exactly right.
So how did you get into it? I think it's funny because you always hear companies that sort of have these breakout years, right? Which I feel like you guys have had in the last year or two.
Yep.
And it's like, another overnight success that took 10 years to happen or whatever. Right? So I didn't know you were in business that long. I mean, it takes a while.
Yep, 10 years.
Companies just don't blow up overnight, for no reason. So you guys have been in the trenches. How'd you get into design?
Really simply, I was just into art as a kid, always drawing and designing. I used to design helmets, I used to draw a template around the Troy Lee helmet and then paint my own pictures in there and just have dreams.
Yep.
And then I had an idea, actually from a Troy Lee bike. There was a day in the dirt bike that Troy Lee did on a Cowie, I don't know, a long time ago, 10 years ago.
Okay.
It was just awesome. And I saw it and I wanted it on my bike, but I had some really specific changes I wanted to make to it that were in my own head.
Okay.
So I drew them up and I took them to a bunch of companies that do what I now do. And no one could get it the way that I wanted it. I had a really specific idea and no one could reach it. So instead, I just decided that I'd try and do it myself. So I jumped onto Publisher and made it up and took it to a company and said, hey, print this. This is what I want. With only the intention to have it on my own bike.
Yeah.
Nothing more. Put it on my bike and I was stoked with it. It looked awesome. I was so happy.
It was sick.
And I had the matching Troy Lee Design stars gear. It was the best. I've got a photo. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine was like, dude, that looks sick. Can you design one for me? And then
the ball took off.
It just went from there. Yeah.
Your graphics, like I mentioned earlier, I can see a bike from across the pits and go, oh, that's SKDA graphics. They have a distinct look. Mm-hmm. What is that?
Yeah, that was intentional. We did that intentionally. So not that long ago, obviously we've been going for 10 years. When I started, I had no idea what I was doing. You look at that stuff now, it doesn't look pretty, everything comes from somewhere. But I got to a certain point when I realized, everyone's doing the same thing. It's a pretty consistent style, which looks good. The factory style, everyone's doing that. So how can we be different? Let's just do something completely unique. So I really like that clean feel. A lot of brands are doing that now, like Fox and Troy Lee. They do that clean style.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's adapt that and put it into a kit. So we intentionally turned to that point and tried to just follow this unique path because it's a pretty good way to get noticed, right?
Yeah.
Just do something unique.
It totally worked.
We'll just run with it, and now that's half of our whole branding, our purpose is be good with customer service and be super unique.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of customer service, we've mentioned on the show, you guys, you have a deal with a shipping company out of Australia. Everything's made in Australia for U.S. customers, right?
Yep.
Designed, built right there. You have a 2-day, 48-hour shipping to any place in the U.S., though, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible.
Once it's printed and completed, obviously there's the design process.
Of course.
But once it's all ready to go, jumps on the plane with DHL we use, and within 48 hours it's to your door here in the US.
Dude, and their communication is great. I got email, and you can also get text updates, and then it even gives you the option to leave it at the door without a signature.
Yeah.
They were like, we're delivering it in a few hours, and I'm like, deliver without signature? No worries, there it was.
Yep.
So I was pretty impressed.
Yeah,
remember, I said to you, I thought they were made locally because they came so fast.
Yeah, you could buy something domestically here, and it takes 7 to 10 days at least. So from Australia to have it here in that 7 to 10 day window, that's pretty dang good.
Yeah,
and they don't bubble.
Yeah.
I love that. When I put them on, I felt like a champ. I did graphics without a bubble. And then he broke the news that, what is it? You guys use a special material, right?
Yeah. There's a material that's pretty commonly used now that's got air release technology in it. So it makes it just heaps easier to apply for everybody, which is, one of the hardest things about buying graphics is putting it on, right?
You shrunk Grant like 5 inches. He was like, yeah, I'm so good at graphics now. I'm so awesome.
It's easy for everyone. Sorry, man.
Well, that's good news, though.
Yeah, no, it is great. And like you mentioned, something that's dying, I think, around the world is customer service, and that's a focus for you guys. And as Grant mentioned, you get a text, okay, your graphics are designed, they're on their way. Okay, they're en route. There's all of these. You know where it's at all the time, and it's a small thing, but it's really nice. So you're not going, man, I ordered these graphics. Where the hell are they?
Yeah. And then even after sales service, we pride ourselves on being really good. If a customer comes back with a concern, we'll do everything we can to get them sorted out, whether it's a problem or misfitment or something goes wrong on their half or whatever it is. We'll do everything we can to sort them out because we want to get and retain customers, and we want that to be something that we're known for. So we focus on it.
That's awesome, man. What about for customers over in Europe? So everything from the U.S. is designed in Australia and shipped, but you guys have a separate place over there?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so importing is really expensive for European customers, and there's delays with shipping and stuff. It's quite difficult to get in there. Obviously, Australia and US have a really good relationship on a business side of things, so Europe's a bit trickier to get in. So we want to still offer it to the European customers. We're really focused on trying to become that global brand, offer it anywhere. Like Truly, of course, is. So we wanted to make sure we could avoid that. We don't want people dealing with slow shipping and import taxes and whatever. So we've hooked up with a mob over there, and we get all our stuff. It's still, the orders are still managed in Australia, designed in Australia. But when it gets to the print process, it moves to the European print hub where it packages and ships and prints from there, so that we don't have to internationally ship.
But same machines, same materials, so the quality is the same. And
it's all our specs. So we sent them all our specs. They're using the materials we want them to be using. It's our media, it's our service, it's our everything.
And all your stuff, you mentioned you don't stock a bunch of merchandise because it's all custom. Right?
It's all one-off.
That's most of. Or is that all of it?
It's really good to sort of offer all the graphics kits and chuck on whatever we got to do, the name and number and logos, and just print them out there. We can get them here so quickly that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've always wondered, how difficult is it to sort of just keep reinventing yourself? I know you're in that industry where what works today is not going to sell tomorrow necessarily. How do you manage it? Like, where does the inspiration come from? How often do you find yourself having to go, okay, hit the reset button?
Yeah, it's difficult, and you've got to be really careful. Like, being creative is a really tricky thing to do, The designers would know about it. It's tough. You can't just rattle out new after new after new. I'm always looking for inspiration. Like, even on our trips when we're over here, whatever it is, you might see a car that looks cool or a T-shirt or whatever, and just pick up on weird things and then try and
make
apply
it your
that
own,
in your own world. Yeah, so I email myself constantly. I'll see a photo of a dude wearing a T-shirt and a hat in a funny color. I'm like, that's cool. Take a photo, send it myself at home. So when I'm back there and I'm in my zone, I can try and come up with something that no one else has. And you can't look at dirt bikes for inspiration because that's been done. So you can look at weird stuff,
Yeah, it's interesting. Maki, the guy that does all the TLD design, he'll watch weird little Japanese anime, and then he's watching Formula One, and he takes like you do. He's trying to look if anywhere he can for something to go, oh, I like that. How can I make that, moto?
Of course.
So it's interesting. Are you the only designer?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So I've come up with the company's creative, some of those big unique designs, the Divide we talked about, and some of these other ones are my child. I'm the designer, I'm the excited guy that gets it all done. But we've got a team of designers in-house that help to obviously come up with new designs as well as manage the orders and manage customers' special requests and whatever it is.
Awesome. Well, I can just tell you, I'm stoked you guys are a part of the show now. I hope that we can kind of grow together and be a part of you. I can see you guys just getting bigger and better because you look at your stuff and it's just rad. It stands out and it's super high quality and the customer service is second to none.
It's just sick.
Awesome.
It's just sick.
Sick,
man.
Bottom
so
line,
sick.
it's
Yeah,
sick.
exactly. Yeah.
You got to get a 6 set of graphics.
Well, hey, Sam, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you all year long.
Likewise, I really appreciate it, guys. Cheers.
Thanks.
All right, cheers. All right, well, it's time for the 4Wheel Parts Get At Me Q&A. 4Wheel Parts is your one-stop shop for all things off-road. So whether you've got a truck, a Sprinter, UTV, go in there. They've got literally everything you could possibly want. And they do the surface as well, any kind of installation that you need. Those guys do an awesome job. Great products, great service. Donnie, what do we have for questions today?
Yeah, Dave Bress wants to know, it seems like the passing rule on what's legal and not legal needs to be changed. Is it time, or how do we get an actual rule on what is a legal and illegal pass?
The problem is every pass is so different. It's not like you can create a rule that covers everything. You know what I mean? There's going to be situations where the Ferrandis and Craig one's a great example. It looked super dramatic and violent, and if you watch it, you're like, oh, that was dirty. But when you really start looking at it and paying attention, it was a bad move, but it wasn't malicious, and,
There was no, ill intent.
There was no intent. So,
also, if he wasn't French, there'd be no booing, I believe.
Well, less.
Or less.
Less.
They booed Ricky because he bumped with Pastrana, who was Mr. Popular. So Ferrandis is, as you said, French, so he's not popular. Craig's a California
He's Mr.
kid.
Unpopular at the moment.
He's the guy that everyone's like, we don't even know what he's saying on the podium.
The right answer to this, for me, in my opinion, is not a rule or a law, right? It's put together a group, and we've talked about this.
Rider committee.
Put together a committee of guys who can look at an incident, guys who have raced. I think Trey Kennard, he keeps coming to my mind just because I think he's level-headed. He's going to be able to give you a very good explanation to why something is too much or just racing. And maybe it's 2 or 3 guys, but I think having 2 guys who work at the AMA who've never raced, who are just...
How about team managers? Like how you have the group?
But they're going to be subjective.
Of course, but you're going to have 5, 6, 7 team managers, and they all get to vote on what it is, and then the one guy that's going to be subjective is out, and then they're going to have 4 other guys that have no skin in the game, most likely, and then they can say, "Hey, look, that was..."
Yeah, but then it comes back to, well, KTM and Husky are going to butter each other up, and where...
I think there's a lot of hair on that. I think you create a committee, and those guys are responsible.
You remove the
for it.
brands that are involved, and then just allow the ones that aren't involved.
Well, I think you have
there's still championship implications.
Yeah.
There's
First
all
of all,
kinds
you
stuff.
have to have people that are not... that don't have skin in the game, for lack of a better term.
Nothing to gain.
In other words, someone that's freshly retired, or someone that's frustrated with what's happened. Gosh, why am I drawing a blank? He just retired from Honda, the old team manager. And one of the things he was saying was he was frustrated with no clarity in decision making. When there was a penalty. When there wasn't, when there was probation, where the rules were.
Gosh, I don't know who you're talking about. Oh, Bentley? He's working for Geico now, isn't he? He was in charge of the 250 program over there. Take a few racers.
Wait, hold on. I'm having one of those
LaRocco
days.
is another guy that comes to mind. Jeff Emig. Why not Jeff Emig? He's got nothing to gain or lose by making decisions, but that guy certainly knows aggressive racing.
Yeah, but you should have 3 guys, so you can kind of vote on it and go, look, and you go through a little opinion.
I'm just sticking my hand up because I want to have a vote. You're saying, how about 3 guys? I'm saying we just need one. Like, we just need someone that we can say that most people go, yeah, we respect his opinion. And I think Jeff Emig would be a great candidate.
Still, just like you said, still people have likes and dislikes in the pits and this and that.
Yeah, but I think a guy like Trey or Jeff, or Trey and Jeff, would both be. They're not going to. They might have a guy they prefer, but they're going to be honest about it. Because if they make a call and it's bad,
it's on them too.
People are going to. They're going to take heat.
You know what? The fans should vote. The fans should vote.
No.
You make the call.
No. Actually, that's where I think.
I was just kidding.
That was the worst idea.
Yeah.
I was joking.
Well, no, but I think there needs to be there needs to be a roadmap. You know, to me, it's just vague and it's frustrating because I don't want to sit here and keep trying to trash the AMA or whoever's making decisions. But what I'd like to see is someone stand up, give a statement why that was not penalized, and why that one that looked almost exactly the same 2 races ago in a heat race, why no one blinked an eyelid. To me, I don't think it's okay to go, well, that was for 8th place in the LCQ and no one cares. But because this one was polarized, we should do something. To me, it's like saying, well, he stole a Ferrari. He only stole a Honda Accord. So we're going to go off the Ferrari, but we'll let the Accord slide because who cares? You know, that's where I see a problem and a room for improvement. If we got to change the rules, let's do it. Let's get everyone together. And not everyone, but, you know, get people involved who can find that mutual ground. It'll be political. You'll have aggressive people saying, no, that's not good and whatever. But set a baseline. And to me, at least once you have that base, it's a lot easier. Right now, I just think I don't really know what's going to be legal or, you know, cool and just, racing. And then someone gets a year's probation for something where I'm like, but I've seen way worse, and nothing was done. So and
it's certainly a contact sport. It's like, but
it totally is nowadays.
We're getting to this point where it's like, oh, do we have to question every single pass? Oh, that was dirty. That wasn't. This was dirty. That wasn't.
They got so much speed when these guys are landing. When they commit, like, I'm going to take the line away. You're coming in. If that guy wants to rail it and not let off, there's going to be contact and you probably both go down. So now is it like, if you look from the outside, you're like, oh, that guy took him out. If he checks up, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's almost a game of chicken to make a pass now, right? Like, it's who's going to let off.
So then if you say, okay, if you just take the guy down that you passed, that rewards a penalty. There's going to be guys going, oh, I'm high, and left the door open, let me toss the bike. Because not only am I going to go down, but he goes down with me.
So you mean it's going to be like soccer when the guy doesn't hit the other guy and they tip over?
Well, did you watch last weekend? I saw, I think it was Eli and Barsha going back and forth, right? And at one point, Barsha ran up the inside of him. Eli knew it was coming, and he literally just stood up and waited. And Barsha even paused, like, to hold him there. And Eli didn't get mad. He just, after he went, he cut down, and he ended up making the pass clean and taking off. But
that's that old saying, taking the high road.
That was actually fun to watch, that little exchange, honestly.
It was fun. And again, if Eli hadn't shut off, if he's like, no, I'm not letting you, then boom, they both go down. So,
And then the average fan's like, oh, Barsha took out another guy.
Yeah. So that's where you need a racer who's been in those situations, who can look at it objectively and go, well, he should have let off. Really, this guy, or whatever. They make the call.
Or just you look at Ferrandis, Craig, and you go, okay, he wasn't trying to take him out. He saw an opportunity to try to make a pass, and it was probably a bad choice. But
aggressive and stupid, but
not malicious.
I would have said aggressive and ambitious. I think he saw an opening. I don't even think. I personally, we all have different opinions. I don't think it was stupid. I think he saw a gap, and there was a gap.
It was a small gap. It was stupid because he was so much faster than Craig, and it was not even halfway point in the race.
But go watch it again. Now back it up. Jet is 10 seconds ahead of him.
Getting away.
He's long gone. I think Ferrandis has that racer mentality. He wants to win.
I have to go.
He knows
right
where
now.
the leader is. He's not thinking about Craig. And when you watch it, he kind of almost gets stuck behind Craig for about 2 laps.
2 laps, yep.
And I know as a racer, and you know this, when you get almost start following that pace, you kind of lose that mojo, that little. And I think he just was like, I can't get stuck behind this guy. I got to go for it. He saw a small opening and he went for it. And I do understand why a lot of people like, how can you defend a guy? He just cleaned him out. I'm like,
I respect that guy's drive, Ferrandis' drive.
I do
to
too.
get to the front.
I do too. I mean, I don't care where anyone's from. I do respect people that, like, you know, when you can tell their intentions, like to do what a racer should be.
He wants to
be
win.
the best that they can be. And I think he also breaks the mold a little bit of the typical French guy. I mean, I know when I raced GPs, the French were kind of known as, on their good weekend, they killed it. But when it got a little bit tough or it was sandy or muddy, they pulled in the pits. Like, that was kind of what they were known for, like just throwing in the towel. Seriously.
Waving a white flag.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no
truth to that.
Hating everybody.
I'm not
throwing a white flag.
I'm not making too many friends in France right now.
Look, all you got to do is look back at Ferrandis when he got here and how much that guy has learned in this 3-year period. He was he was just barely starting to make podiums, and he really has progressed to the point where he's a contender every time he gets on the track.
Yeah, no, he's matured a lot, and I think that's a testament to his drive. And I think, you know, I don't know the exact relationship, but I got to say we got to give some credit to David Vilman as well for probably being in the corner, and I think Vilman's probably going, hey man, you need to be tougher than I was. I think Vilman probably looks back and goes, maybe I could have won a championship or should have won. And, you know, when you can go in hindsight, don't do what I did or be better than I was, I think that's a good combination for those guys.
Vilman's looking way back as to when Wyndham T-boned him off that track.
Going back to what's legal and what's illegal.
Right.
Do you remember that whole saga? That was when they brought in Steve Whitelock.
Yep.
And he came in and he was like, I'm going to make a statement. And he made a statement, and boy, he got... I mean, I was one that said I thought that penalty was out of nowhere, like, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. And it came out of nowhere, and he was pissed that he got taken they got theoretically taken to court and Honda won, and as Honda should have. And I know that really put a real black eye on that whole, we're going to govern the sport. But I think that's doing it the wrong way. When you bring someone and goes, okay, it's my way or the highway. This is my town now. You can't just expect everyone to change their thought process. You know, sometimes I use football analogies because, like I said, I'm that weekend warrior fan that goes, oh, you know, why? You can't lead with the helmet. You got to do the shoulder. And I've seen some calls. I'm like, man, he didn't try and hit him with his head. He moved. He ducked. It was accidental contact. And there's still those calls. And our sport, we're going to keep seeing that. And we're going to keep seeing guys collide at the apex of a corner. We're going to keep saying, that was dirty, that wasn't, you're wrong, I'm right. But I do really think it needs to have a serious chat. And I think the AMA need to stop being closed-minded and bring people to the table. I'm not saying me. I don't care if they hear from me or not. They just need to start listening to people that have been there recently, because the sport's changed as well. Man, did I ramble on? Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, I feel better. I'm going to sleep good tonight.
What else you got?
A fan wrote in that he's racing the Futures race at the Foxborough and wanted some advice on learning the track, bike setup, or anything else that can help him with.
Yeah, I saw this question come in, and this is one thing that and I haven't ridden the Futures tracks. I've watched some of the ones. Like, I know Max Lee got hurt last year at one, where there's still enough jumps left that you can jack yourself up. So, like, to somebody who's just going to take their motocross bike and go race.
I had a buddy break both his wrists at the first one in Anaheim last year.
It's a little sketchy because motocross suspension doesn't work on a track like that. The dirt is going to be really sticky and tacky, and that's going to kind of suck your suspension down and make it feel really soft anyway. it's I don't think it's perfectly safe to go out there with motocross stuff. Have you ever ridden a Supercross track with motocross suspension?
I have.
It's not great.
Yeah.
I will tell you, there's my tips. Turn your clickers all the way in until they stop. Your compression clickers, front and rear. Maybe 2 clicks out. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. Go all the way in and out, 1 or 2. Slow your rebound down. Probably 3 or 4 clicks, front and rear. And just don't try to be amazing. Just go have fun. You're not going to get a factory ride.
Laps, China.
Laps, China. Just
laps.
Just go enjoy
Lots
it.
of laps.
Yeah.
I think the one thing for me, kind of like listening to LB reminded me a little bit, when you don't have a lot of track time and you come there and you're nervous, you walk up to a jump, you're like, whoa, that's kind of... You have a track walk, instead of chatting with everyone and talking about how difficult things could be, go take a side view, because the takeoff, no disrespect to the guys building, they're hustling left and right, but there could be a hole, there could be a rock. Sometimes the jump faces, I'm doing it for the camera, but the right side could be sloped, the left could be a little steeper, so the left will project you higher, the right, go look at that stuff. Look from the side, look at the top, because everyone's wants to hit the middle, and the middle might be one way, but that could be sloped down, that could be peaked, and it usually does happen. Look at all your options so that you kind of are aware of that. Make sure that there's no holes on the face, so that when someone's in front of you not doing that jump, you feel confident to go next to them, whether it's to the left or the right, and still do it. If you're intimidated by a jump, go to the landing, get a feel for it, because a lot of times from the landing, it doesn't look as intimidating. Look from the middle jump, look from every angle you can. And then also, don't get focused on that one jump. I see guys are like, oh, the whoops are big. I'm guilty myself. You're so focused on the whoops that you don't even put the rest of the track together. You're not jumping this, you're not flying there, you just come to the whoops, oh my God, there's the whoops. Do all the basics. If there's one triple or rhythm, don't worry about it. Get everything else perfect, and even if you don't jump that, if you're doing everything else perfect, you're still going to be competitive.
Yeah, and another thing I would say is make sure, if you want to be competitive, have a start device. My guess is you're never going to have started on traction like that.
Yeah.
So you're going to need that. Set it up as stiff and slow as you can. Take your time. I don't know. Any other advice?
Shouldn't they ride it like that someplace else just to kind of see what that feels like?
For sure.
Of course. I think anyone that can will. Yeah. Most people are like, let's find somewhere. Yeah. I think it's on the day when everyone gets nervous, take a deep breath. It is intimidating, but...
Yeah, but I know guys that, don't even check tire pressure before they go to the track, so...
Are you having a dig at me again, bro?
Oh, sorry. And they bring their laundry basket.
That's my gear bag.
Oh, sorry.
Then when the missus doesn't do the laundry, she's like, you didn't put in the laundry basket. I'm like, it's been in there all weekend long, okay? That's my gear bag.
You've seen that, Ping, haven't you? He just takes the laundry basket.
The laundry basket.
That's it.
Huh? It works.
Yeah, it works. That's all I got.
All right. Well, good luck to the folks doing these Supercross futures. I would just say be safe. Yeah, have fun, be safe. And that's our show. Good stuff.
Yeah,
we had our boy. Are you sad that Albie's done? He's gone.
Hey, there's always next year for a follow-up.
It's a 5-minute show. You just add 5 minutes to what your last year was like.
Just tell us, more. Tell us the whole stories all over again. Big thank you to Yamaha, PowerDot. PowerDot, go over there and use Whiskey Throttle for 20% off. Method Race Wheels, 20% off using Whiskey Throttle. Troily Designs, SKDA, Dunlop, 4-wheel parts, Adidas, Pro Circuit, Nihilo Concepts, giving you a free gift with any purchase. Seat Concepts, Fire Department Coffee, 20% off using our code. Thank you to Paleo Ranch Foods. If you're looking for a healthy snack or jerky, get over there and check those guys out. They are available at Walmart and also on Amazon. And Langston Motorsports. That's our show. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in a couple weeks for our next show. We got a couple cool guests coming up, and we'll be announcing those soon on our Instagram page. Follow us there, and like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Follow, subscribe, do all that crap. We'll see you on the next show. Bye-bye.